What's this? Dad confronts his kid's bully at school.
You think you're cool, bud? You think you're cool? You want to pick on some more kids? No, you want to pick on some more kids? You think it's fucking funny? You think it's funny?
Wait, what? What did I just miss? Hello? What the fuck? What? What?
Got that on video?
Why? Dad confronts his kid's bully in school. Now the dad got bullied. My critique was going to be that I feel like having your dad show up and defend you like that is going to look cringe, and now you're going to look like a loser no matter what. But if your dad shows up and loses too, Jesus. Rip.
Being xenophobic, nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
I mean, look, I gotta be honest with you, like, you and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. Hi, I'm Sam Cedar, host of The Majority Report, and today I am surrounded by 20 conservatives. My first claim is Trump's attack on DEI hides his real goal, which is to give corporations more power. Oh, God, why? Okay.
Let's go.
Oops, sorry, Sam. No worries.
All right. I think I have a slight issue with the back end of the premise. I guess Trump's attacks on DEI being a real goal to, give corporations more power. I'd rather center the conversation around the democratic, especially as conservatives, the issues that people have with DEI and why I believe Trump would, want to support the issues that people are voting for him.
I mean, I'm talking about his whole attack on DEI. It's actually DEIA, right? You know that.
Right.
In government agencies.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, and A? What, alcoholics? What's A?
A being for accessibility.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think the attack on DEI isn't an attack on people's protections. It's on the other end of the spectrum, right? Wanting to end DEI doesn't want to end protections for someone being disabled, someone being inaccessible to get into a job. It rather wants to de-incentivize corporations to push them to hire these people on unfair bases, right?
Okay, but DEIA is not about quotas or anything like that. It is about protections for people within these organizations, or to make sure that you have different communities that have the opportunity to apply to these things.
Right.
So it can mean within government agencies, it means things like, let's pay interns so that not only wealthy people can have their kids do internships in these agencies.
Right.
Or let's put out notices around different parts of town, metaphorically speaking, so that people know this job exists.
Right. This is where it begins, but this isn't the ultimate goal that conservatives have an issue with. Conservatives don't have an issue with trying to spread job applications to poorer communities.
Well, then why rescind DEIA requirements in government agencies?
Because the problem with DEIA is there may not be perceived actual number quotas, but that's what it devolves into, and especially with corporations.
Do you have the evidence of that?
I mean, sure, we can look at corporations that are government agencies that are hiring people on not true, proper bases. We can even look at
I mean,
we can even look at
would you
the
have
DNC's,
any evidence that that's happening?
Yeah, even the DNC's nomination of Kamala as president.
That's not a position or a job. Oh my God, holy Christ, that's such a cringe. That should just be Sam's opening argument. And this is, I've even used this, hold on. You said you don't like DEI. I don't know if Peter's released this whole video yet when I went to do his event a little bit ago, but you said that you don't like it when the government does DEI. What DEI? What DEI program? What's it? Name one DEI program that you don't like. Nobody ever has a single example ever. What's a single DEI program that you don't like?
Sure, there was no reason to nominate Kamala as she wasn't democratically selected. She was the vice president. She didn't go through a single primary.
Oh, please tell me Sam's not going to concede this point because he was a fucking open primary Bernie anti-Biden guy.
None of these things.
So you're saying that Kamala was the vice president of the United States after the president drops out 2 months before the convention. You think that's a DEI
She wasn't
hire?
Every presidential nominee is democratically selected to be the nominee for that party.
Do you realize
except
there were not
Kamala
even
Harris.
primaries prior to 1972
well,
in the
sure,
Democratic Party?
This isn't before 1972.
Well, I understand, but what did you think you were going to run primaries in those 2 months?
Well, sure,
Joe Biden should have dropped out even 3 years ago.
Well, sure, but even before, when Kamala was running in primaries, she didn't. She wasn't the next man up. None of this. She wasn't the next person.
But she was the vice president,
right? Of course, but
why am I so bad at pronouncing Kamala? Racism. It's because conservative commentators have explicitly tried their hardest to pronounce the name incorrectly. That's why. In any other media environment, I might be unable to make that statement, but when you have a group of people who all can somehow say Vivek Ramaswamy correctly, but they can't say Kamala correctly, I don't buy that as being anything other than intentional misleading by conservative propagandists to make it so that nobody can say her fucking name.
But she wasn't in primaries.
Detail. But
Right,
listen,
well-
aside from, I would have might have wanted a different candidate as well. But that has nothing to do with Trump rescinding orders that basically say you need to search for a wide range of candidates, not necessarily give any different benefits, but you need to make sure different communities have access to the awareness of this job. You need in your office accessibility for people who have physical handicaps.
Sure.
If you have folks who identify as as trans, you need to make it at least hospitable and not. This is all non-discriminatory stuff. That's what this is all about.
But you're cherry picking the portions of DEI that even conservatives don't have issues. Conservatives don't have issues with making workplaces.
The whole DEI apparatus within our government was a function of doing exactly what I said. Had nothing to do with quotas.
It is unfortunate that those things get taken out, and there might not have been specifically.
What else was he trying to take out?
It's trying to take out people getting jobs that don't deserve those jobs. People getting pushed into positions they have no qualifications.
There is no evidence of what you just said happening in these government agencies.
That's not true. I mean, we're not allowed to sit here and have notes and numbers to pull up for you. You can't.
Give me one example.
You can't ask me to pull up numbers when I'm not. I'm not
an example then. Something you've heard of before.
But these
Something you've heard of before.
that conservatives.
Sorry, you've been voted out. Please return to your seat.
Thanks, Sam.
See?
Okay, so I think the roots issue with DEI isn't what the previous gentleman was trying to point. Conservatives aren't necessarily have issues with those things, like accessibility to people who might need help. The issue is, and I kind of referred to this before, when you have agencies and systems, what tends to happen when you have government overreach, big government, is that agencies and systems get abused. And I think unequivocally, DEI was heavily abused
by who?
in
When?
practice. It was great in theory. It's idealistic, which is sure.
We're about to get an example, don't worry.
That a lot of people can get behind, but it was abused in a lot of ways. When you have actors, like we're in California right now, when you have actors, white male actors who are being told, we do not like white men, we're not gonna...
Wait, we're going to Hollywood? Actors? What? What? Come on.
Cast any white men. We only want this
come on.
particular kind of gender, race, right? That is an abuse of a system. It's no longer fair, but more about just perpetuating one aspect of, visual compelling aspects. Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is companies are going to say, well, we want to look the most diverse.
Okay,
and what that is it's moral grandstanding. It's that because we have more black women, we sell better soda. Like that.
I got you.
That is not.
Well, that's getting a little far afield from what Trump's DEI orders are. But I can tell you, as somebody who was a sitcom actor in the '90s, I would walk into a room and everybody I would see would look like me, and I was doing a second position, which doesn't even exist anymore, where you do 2 pilots a year, and I was looking around basically every part of television when I was a kid. I was centered in some fashion. It was either this is about my mother, or this is about my father, or someone like me was centered. So we can argue as to whether or not Hollywood is overcorrected in some fashion. But on a governmental level, the DEIA directives that agencies were following for the past 4 years, there's nothing, I don't know what you mean by abuse on it, but there was no evidence that it was an affirmative action program in those instances. It was about anti-discrimination. You cannot discriminate against these people, and you want to open up opportunities for a broad swath of people. Again, the internship is like one of the most material things that exist there, where the idea that you need to pay interns. And that's important because you want low-income people to have the same sort of like opportunities to see these things as wealthy people. My kids can maybe afford to do an internship for the summer instead of going to get a job.
I think what's happening is we're talking about 2 different things.
Well, but I'm talking about Trump's DEIA rescission is a way of basically driving people out of these agencies, making it
You're saying Trump specifically, and I understand why you're saying Trump, but I think...
Wait, I'm so sorry. Quick. Okay, wait. I want to build 12 blue science manufacturers because it makes 2 of these. Okay, and they are 24/7 crafting time, which means I need 2 engine units per second, or 1 engine unit per second. I need 2 per second. No, I need 1 per second. No, I do need 2 per second. And these take 10 seconds. Do I really need 20 engine building things? Is that the right ratio? Did these change? Or am I crazy? Is it 20 engine unit building machines?
The American people as a whole have kind of, and I won't say whole because obviously it's not 100%, but a majority of American people have kind of rejected DEI because
I don't think a majority of Americans know what DEIA is.
That may be the case, but again, my point is we're talking about abuse of a system. What you're talking about is not necessarily what was happening. What people were seeing were, hey, because you're white, you can't do this, and liberals like to do this thing where they create systems and then they created the whole idea of woke and then they backed away and then conservatives say woke and then they're like, we don't know what woke is. They created DEI. Biden literally said, Kamala Harris.
I wonder if this whole conversation is going to be like all of my conversations the past week. Where we don't really talk about any actual examples or any actual things. It's all just kind of like our own concepts of what we think DEI is and what we think it's just, ugh.
Is being chosen because she is a black woman, and then all of a sudden, Democrats for the rest after that said that's not why she was chosen, even though Biden literally said that. And then we have this cognitive dissonance as if we're not living in reality.
Biden wanted to make sure that there was that there was an opportunity for a black woman to be his vice president.
Yes, but so why did Democrats move away from that and say no, it wasn't because she was a black woman? So my point is that
it's not because she's a black woman.
But that's what they said. I can agree that it's not because she's a black woman, but that's what they said. Why did they say that?
No, because there are plenty of black women, right? Like he could have picked anybody, but he picked specifically her. You're positing the idea that there wasn't a black woman woman who would have been qualified for that position.
No,
and I don't believe that.
No, that's not. Conservatives aren't saying that there aren't, because again, even in the Republican Party right now, and in Trump's cabinet, there are people of color that Democrats pretend don't exist, like J.D. Vance's wife, and
J.D. Vance's wife is
J.D. Vance's wife? That's not an elected position, my friend.
not in the cabinet.
No, but if J.D. Vance was a Democrat, his wife would be lauded all over everything because of her color of her skin.
Listen, I'm not here to defend the Democrats' choice on every policy, but there is one party in this country that is identitarian. There is one party that is represented and it is homogenous, and it is the Republican Party. 85% of Republicans are white. That's just the reality of it.
So exactly.
Some people don't necessarily have a problem with that.
But here's the thing. You said even if let's just say, okay, that's true. 80% of Republicans are white. Does that mean that they're less moral? That they can't run an effective government? What does race have to do? What does race have to do? Hold on. What does race?
Donald Trump didn't have to say my vice president's going to be a white male. Because they all knew it was going to be.
No, this is the premise of DI. What does race have to do with running an effective government? What does race have to do? If let's say DI on the micro level.
I will tell you right now.
DI on the micro level at McDonald's.
I'll tell you.
Am I going to get better nuggets?
Listen, I'll ask you a question.
If the cashier is black or white, what does that have to do with anything?
I'll tell you what it is. First of all, DEIA means that if you come into this agency or corporation, you're not going to be discriminated against because you don't look like everybody else, or you don't have the same physical abilities as everybody else, or you may require handles on the bathroom or whatever it is. That's what DEIA does. But does it make a government better if there's a broad representation of the people it's supposed to govern? Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Regardless of DEI, don't we already have things in our Constitution that protects people's rights, protects people?
No.
We don't?
No.
Do we or do we not?
No, we do not. Tell me what protects people from discrimination in housing and in work and hiring or getting loans? It's all statutes. It's all statutes. And in these government agencies, there was nothing except for that order. That's why Trump just rescinded it.
I'm gonna tap out because I think someone else has a better can defend that point specifically better than me.
All right, please return to your seat.
Okay. Hi. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Okay. When it comes to DEI, essentially, if a person was not racist, he would hire someone regardless, right? So why would we need a policy to protect a person if we've moved past racism?
What? What?
So would you consider yourself racist?
Wait, are you suggesting we've moved past racism?
Would you consider yourself racist?
I consider myself, and sometimes I think we all practice like some form of, white supremacy. I think actually.
Oh, God. Okay, these are the cuck positions. I don't know if he's hanging around Emma too much or whatever. This is the type of shit that the Democratic Party needs to run from these positions. Screaming, no more. Honest to God, anything that involves the term white supremacist or Western supremacy or Western colonialism or imperialism, any position that involves that, just as fast as you can, run from that. As fast as you can. We just don't use this language. It's so ineffective. It's so not good. Ugh. But also, no offense to Sam, okay, but just so the battle lines are clear, okay, if the Nazi war does start, you're not white, you're Jewish, okay? You don't get to be in the Nazi club. All right, so slow down there, Sam. I'm just kidding. Half kidding.
I think we all practice like some form of, white supremacy.
Like, the easy way to say this in a way that probably everybody will agree with you, conservatives and liberals, is you just say, am I racist? I mean, like, probably not, but I'm sure we're all biased a little bit towards different people, but I try my best not to be. Like, that's it. Just say that. It's super easy.
I think actually, like, we all do to some degree.
Well, I'm glad that you're saying that. So, I guess going to the LGBT topic, it seems like it's very prevalent for you as an issue.
Well, it seems like a big issue. I mean, the Republican Party spent literally hundreds of millions of dollars demonizing trans people.
Well, the reason why they've done something like that, and I think you're misconstruing the narrative, they haven't demonized them. They simply want protections back for their own children, because children are being stripped away from
Who's
their
their own children? Wait, children are being stripped away from their parents?
Yes, due to AB 954.
Not AB 954. Oh, no. Not AB 954.
Now include a gender identity as a premise to remove and strip parental rights for children who maybe they are rejecting their gender ideology.
So, but you'd be okay with parents who agree with their children's doctors to provide gender-affirming care?
I do not agree with that. Do you?
I believe that parents and doctors can make those decisions with the kids.
If a child can't smoke, drink, or have...
Hold on, real quick. Does Sam have children? I would always do a personal example here. I'm sorry, but especially if you're a conservative, I don't want you anywhere fucking near any conversations that I have that involve a doctor and my child and me. Fuck you for trying to get government ever involved in that. That is an insane overreach. You have no right, no business being involved in that.
Sex before the age of 18, they should not be able to consent to a sex change. Now, in terms of a DEI initiative, the reason why there's military bans on trans women and trans men is because they do not have the ability to cooperate at a mental capacity when they're constantly undergoing hormone treatment, as well as depression pills, as well as different mood stabilizer pills. And so when you go out to combat, do you really think you're going to bring an ice cooler pack with your, whether that be hormone estrogen or whatever it may be, while you're about to shoot someone of the opposing war?
Are diabetics not allowed to serve in combat? Also, there's more in the military than just combat positions. Isn't that like 1% or 2% of all positions in the military? But
executive orders that Trump gave were DEIA orders that had to do with agencies that have nothing to do with the military.
Yes, they do. Yes, they absolutely do.
The FDA. They just revoked the ability of the Air Force to teach Air Force members about the Tuskegee Airmen.
Well,
what are we talking about here?
Okay, well,
honestly, like they're rewriting history.
Well, that's your perspective, right? But at the end of the day, if a person...
Tuskegee Airmen, we can all agree, existed, right?
Just listen to this. If you were racist, right, and you were an employer, and if you wanted to absolutely be racist and exercise that, you would. I think DEI sort of prevents people from seeing the reality. If a person truly wanted to hire you based on your intellect, based on your skill set, they would. DEI essentially provides tax cuts for the end of the year when you create your tax returns. They give you a tax credit for hiring someone who is black or a person of color.
Okay, I keep hearing this. What is the name of this provision? Can somebody please tell me? I want this tax credit. What is the tax credit for hiring, okay, dark-skinned people? Can somebody link me this? Is this a real thing? Give me an article, please. I want the DEI tax credit.
In these agencies?
In agencies and private
In government agencies, they don't get tax cuts for hiring people
and
of
the other
color.
thing I wanted
This is
to,
to protect people from discrimination.
The other thing I want to kind of state here is that I've realized...
Okay, hold on. The Work Opportunity Tax Credit is a federal tax credit available to employees for hiring and employing individuals from certain targeted groups who are facing barriers to employment. Who are the targeted groups? Work Opportunity Tax Credit joins other workforce programs that incentivize workplace diversity to facilitate access to good jobs for American workers. Solid Appropriation Act of 2021, authorized extension of WTC until December 31st, 2025. Okay, who are these groups? General Business Credit provided under Section 51 of the Internal Revenue Code. Jointly administered... The WTC may be claimed by an employer that hires and pays or incurs wages to certain individuals who are certified by a designated local agency, sometimes referred to as a state workforce agency, as being a member of one of 10 targeted groups. In general, the WTC is equal to 40% of up to $6,000 in wages paid to or incurred on behalf of an individual. 40% of up to $6,000. So you would get paid, it's a $2,400 tax credit if you paid this or more, I think, right? An individual who is, in their first year of employment, is certified as being a member of the targeted group and performs at least 400 hours of services for that employer. Thus, the maximum tax credit is generally $2,400. A 25% rate applies to wages for individuals who perform fewer than 400, but at least... Employers of all sizes are eligible to claim this, includes a tax on certain tax-exempt employers located in the U.S. Okay, an employer may claim the WTC for an individual who is certified as a member of any of the following targeted groups under Section 51 of the Code. 1. The formerly incarcerated, or those previously convicted of a felony, recipients of state assistance under Part A of Title IV of the Social Security Act, veterans, residents in areas designated as empowerment zones or rural renewal counties, individuals referred to an employer following completion of a rehabilitation plan or program, individuals whose families are recipients of supplemental nutrition assistance under the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008, recipients of supplemental security income benefits under Title 16 of the SSA, and individuals whose families are recipients of state assistance, and individuals experiencing long-term unemployment. Okay, this doesn't even have DEI bullshit. The fuck? This isn't even DEI. Although, to be fair, the guy didn't claim it was this tax credit, but... When somebody finds this DEI thing, the DEI tax credit, please show me. So I can start hiring only DEI people.
Is that a lot of the times with the liberals is that you guys push for example, for DEI and people of Latino or Hispanic descent. And a lot of the times what you don't realize is you're actually doing more harm than good by putting them in positions where you make them believe that it's based on the color of their skin. It's based on...
DEIA does not, is not...
It's based on merit. DEI emphasizes color, skin color, physical attributes.
It says that the people who work in your agency, it's about anti-discrimination.
Discrimination against what?
Against people who may have different cultural mores, may have different...
But that's irrelevant to a job, right? It should be based on merit. And that is the emphasis here.
I feel like Sam needs stronger arguments against this, but I can't tell if he's like cucked out on some of these arguments or not.
Get hired as a merit, but if the DEIA, I'm talking about Trump's rescission of these orders
received a tax cut as an employer, wouldn't you hire a person of color?
Dude,
if you could pay them less?
Listen, we're talking about government agencies that do not get tax cuts. Government agencies...
They don't.
No.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do.
So he fucks up here. This is the clip that Sam showed before.
Talking about
every private and public sector gets tax cuts when you hire a person of color.
It doesn't make any sense.
Government agencies don't pay taxes. Government agencies are funded by the government.
That is not true. That is not true. And you know what? I think the whole juxtapose of this entire conversation...
What month is this?
This is January.
Okay, so we can agree on that.
Damn, they filmed this 2-3 months ago?
The FDA does not pay taxes. It does not get a tax cut because it doesn't pay taxes. DEIA forces them, as an agency, to say if you have a job opening, you must do your best efforts to make sure that every
I like that. I love your buzzword. You must do your best effort. I love that buzzword.
Okay, pause.
Because you feel like you have to. You're pressured to.
Yes.
You shouldn't be pressured to hire someone based on skin color.
No, not to hire someone on skin color, but put up notice about that the job exists. Make sure that you put it in different communities so that you have as wide an application pool as possible.
The easiest way to defend this, and I don't even know if I would, but the easiest way to defend this is just find a DEI program that you think is easily defensible. I'm sure you can find examples of them, like some community notice program, like whatever Cynthia was talking about. Just find one and say, do you disagree with this? Okay, this is DEI. Do you have an example of one that's bad? And then boom, you just go from there, I feel. But if you want to defend DEI ardently, you need to find an example of a program that you think is acceptable. Don't companies get fined when they don't employ a certain amount of disabled people above a certain size? It's like that in Germany, which is why I'm asking. I've never heard that in the US before now.
And therefore you get tax cuts. At the end of the year when you file taxes, you get a tax cut for hiring someone who speaks a different language or different skin color.
Speaks a different language or different skin? Like, what tax cut is he even thinking about? The second language?
I don't know how to respond to that. How you doing?
So I want a little bit more clarification because I don't even know if we got it yet on which part benefits corporations, like from your perspective.
So agencies, the U.S. government agencies, the vast majority of them, what they function to do is inhibit corporations from essentially externalizing their costs onto society.
Sure.
So the
I don't know if anybody's going to this up, but this is going to be a rough one, because if you're going to say DEI exists by the government and Trump's trying to get rid of it to help corporations, how is the argument not going to be, okay, so then you admit that DEI hurts corporations, so hiring because of diversity, equity, inclusion, is that hurting corporations then? Does that hurt business to do that? So do minorities hurt business? Like, I don't know if we'll get to like that part of the argument or not, but we'll see, I guess.
The example would be, I used it before, but it's a good one. I'm making Teflon, C8, for instance, okay? And C8 is supposed to be burned because instead of like deposited, because it's a forever chemical. And I can go out and instead of burning it, it's too expensive to burn it, I'm going to dump it into a river. And the EPA comes in and says, like, you can't do that. We're going to fine you.
That's versus 20 maggots? Yeah, but on my fucking show, it was literally just all of them doing unhinged personal attacks for 2 fucking hours. A waste of fucking time.
You're not allowed to do this. But what the company's doing when they do that is they're going to take the profits that come with lowering their costs by dumping it into the river. And those costs are then borne by everybody who lives around that river. They're going to get cancer. They're going to get gastrointestinal problems, whatever it is. And society bears the cost of that.
Can you connect the dots for me, though? Because it sounds like we're talking about something completely different.
And so the DEIA stuff is just the beginning of demoralizing these agencies and trying to wreck them from the inside. It's all part of like Russell Vote's thing, the OMB,
I don't like
the
this
whole
argument.
Schedule F, where they get rid of civil servants and they demoralize people. And they don't want them to be able to function.
So then, would you agree if this is about demoralizing? I mean, over 75 million people voted for Trump, right? He won the popular vote. Do you not think that in part, you even said yourself that Americans don't really know what DEIA is according to your definition of it?
Well, the government's definition of it.
Okay, well, I would argue that the average American is demoralized by what they've seen, the way that the government goes about their DEI policies in the military and other organizations, not just the military.
Please return to your seat.
Okay.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video.
Cool.
Straight Arrow News is an app and website that is on a mission to raise the bar on journalism in a time of media bias and mistrust.
Wow.
Our team of journalists believe that unbiased news should be the standard and not just the exception. So they report down the middle with facts, delivering news without bias, filter, or spin.
Hell yeah.
Plus, their media mist tool allows you to discover news that's being
Wait, this
underreported
doesn't sound like
or
ground
not even
news.
reported at all by different sides of mainstream media. That's why we're so happy to be partnering with Straight Arrow News. The work they're doing gives us a complete picture of the news straight from our phones and tablets with their app. Go to san.com/surrounded or click the link in the description to check it out. By clicking that link, you're not just supporting this channel, you're also supporting a group
democracy.
of journalists that are raising the bar on news and focusing on serving you unbiased, straight facts. Thanks again to Straight Arrow News for partnering with us on this episode.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, these guys do reporting? Never mind, ground news doesn't do reporting, it's an aggregator.
Now let's get into it.
My next claim is, unless you're a billionaire, a religious fundamentalist, or a xenophobic nationalist, voting for Trump was a mistake.
Jesus. Okay.
Okay, so let's tackle one aspect, religious fundamentalist. What benefit would religious fundamentalists get? And also, can you define what is a religious fundamentalist?
And maybe you could say more of like a Christian nationalist.
Okay.
In this instance. But things like, the attacks on trans folks, the attacks on a woman's right to choose, the idea that we're going to get stuff like an enhanced RFRA, which is going to mean that if you're a pharmacist and you don't want to provide birth control, you may not have to.
Oh man, what? When you do these claims for Jubilee, they make you choose like, you'll go into like 10 of them and they have you choose the ones that are most like provocative to get the best debate or conversation, but you're allowed to choose, or at least I was, when you do these. I feel like Sam is choosing the most nebulous, like conceptual ones when he could be fighting on factual grounds way better. Like whether or not you feel like the Trump admin is serving you as a religious person, that you're fighting on super conceptual grounds there. And Sam is a smart guy, he knows facts. So why would you, I don't know why you would fight on grounds like this. What does nebulous mean? I don't know, like unclear, like kind of like, what are we talking about here exactly? Too much, I don't know.
Don't you think you're assuming that
If you believe that public education, we should take that money and pour it into religious schools, you're gonna get a benefit out of a Trump administration.
Yeah, but don't you think you're assuming that the vast majority of Americans who are moderates?
What do you think you're gonna get out of the Trump administration?
Economic relief. That was
what kind of economic relief? They're going to cut Social Security. You're going to have to pay for your parents. They're going to cut when they go after the agencies like they're going after, right? This is outlined in Project 2025. Russ Vought, who's going to be the OMB head, he was the OMB head the first time around. He wrote all the book on this stuff.
Right, well, you bring up
when you cut agencies and go after them, and you fire all the inspector generals so that they're not being able to make sure that the agencies are working, who do you think profits from that? It's corporations. They're going to go after agencies that make sure your food is not full of botulism, that your air is not full of mercury, that your water is not full of C8. This is what they're going to do. Agencies exist to curb corporations from externalizing their costs and privatizing their profits. So it may be cheaper for a company to dump their chemicals into a river than it is.
Oh, and actually, I should never give these guys charity because they never give me any charity. Do I want to? I will. Fuck, I hate myself for this. One thing that makes Sam's job a lot harder here, I think, is this was filmed in January So we can't look at the same 6 weeks of unfucking mitigated disaster that the Trump admin has given to us all so far. He doesn't have any of that to draw from. He can just go by what Trump has said in his campaign. That being said, I still feel like Sam's not arguing as well as he could be, but...
For them to dispose of it in a safe way. And so they get the profits from that, but the costs are borne by society. They're borne by society in the form of, like, people get cancer. They're borne by society in terms of, like, we've got to do the cleanup. That's what agencies do.
Pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
It's good.
Yeah, I barely got to say anything. Rip.
Hey, it's nice to meet you.
Okay, so I would like to touch on the religious fundamentalist aspect.
Yeah.
Are you an atheist?
I'm a Reformed Jew. I don't have a strong belief in the existence of God, but I don't think that religion in and of itself is bad.
Okay, so what's wrong with religious fundamentalists? So like when you said trans rights and women's rights or something like that?
Well, the problem I have with religious fundamentalists, and really more, I guess it's really theocrats,
nightmare.
is that they want to impose their morality that comes from their religion on the rest of us, and I don't.
But morality from your view is going to be a preference, right? It's not morality, it's a preference.
What's
Oh my god, we've got hardcore religious debate bro coming. Uh-oh.
So morality without a foundation is going to reduce you to a preference.
Well, I have a foundation for my morality.
Which is what?
It's a humanist vision of what basically creates as little suffering as possible for as many people.
Okay, so you're like a consequentialist?
Oh god. Why?
Utilitarian?
I don't really bother myself with being a consequentialist or a utilitarian.
It's always going to reduce you to a preference. So if you say that killing is wrong and I say it's right, you would really have no contention with that.
Well, no, I don't base my understanding of civil society on religion. And so we have a civil society,
Okay.
we have laws that we have decided as a society in a democratic way, and for some people it's okay for it to be informed by their religion.
Okay, but this, I mean, Sam has to argue with him, I guess, because they sat down, but this argument is, the kid's next question is probably going to be, oh, okay, you're going by law, so if society passed a law saying murder was okay, would you be okay with that? Is that going to be the next one?
That's okay.
Okay, perfect. So if tomorrow society comes together and we say, hey, trans folks don't deserve rights, you would be okay with that?
Ooh, and he made it even better because he made it topical, so yeah, you can't do this one.
No, I would be against it, but I mean,
But now, on what basis? Why are we doing morality, religious debates? Oof.
it would be
They would be morally right under your
not
view.
morally right. No, I'm not talking about morals.
Okay,
here.
so here's where I'm getting to.
You have to be talking about morals, because if you're appealing to the law, but then when the law disagrees with you, which we must, right? Because when we lobby for laws to change, right? As citizens, sometimes we don't like the law, and we want the law to change, so that means we must be appealing to something besides the law, right? But
Right? Religious foundations provide an ethical framework for one to live their life off.
I believe you can have an ethical framework without.
And if we take the leftist view to its logical tail end, to its extreme view, you have low reproductive birth rates, you have a reproductive dead end, so two men together can't reproduce unless they have to take from a healthy straight couple. Religion provides this foundation where you do prioritize the nuclear family.
So do you have a problem with gay people
marriage?
being married?
It's not that I have a problem, I just don't see a justification for why they ought to be gay outside of it just feels good. Can you give me another justification for it?
he's not going
Well, I
to be
think
able to.
maybe that's the way they were born.
Okay, what about
People that are
pedophiles?
pedophiles, yeah, this is an easy counter. Sam doesn't do morality or philosophy debates.
Born that way?
They may be, yeah.
Okay, so should we let a pedophile off the hook since they were born that way?
No, I think we as a society is
Should implement duties to prevent them from acting on that innate urge, correct?
Well, I think between consenting adults, it's a different thing than.
Okay,
than
so you're okay
preying
with a
on children.
45-year-old dad with a 19-year-old daughter as well? Incest.
No.
If they consent, you're okay with that?
No, I think society has also determined that it's like it's not beneficial.
Right,
You can't, well, society's determined it's beneficial, but he just brought up birth rates, right? Isn't having children like a beneficial thing for society? Like, yeah, it's.
Duties and obligations that we have, so religion provides those duties. Life isn't about
Well, but
freedom
also
and
I can-
exercising what you want.
I mean, well, you want to impose your religious doctrine
No,
on me,
because
and I don't want that.
you just admitted we need duties. We have responsibility as a society to keep us functioning, to keep us thriving. Your leftist view, the liberal view, doesn't provide anything besides it just makes me feel good. Religion does.
How do you even respond to these questions? Well, Sam made the mistake of not being able to argue from a level of meta-ethics, like where his ethical positions come from. And so if you can't argue that, then anybody with any position is going to be able to basically lead you around all the standard arguments for why your ethical position is bad or inconsistent, especially if the person's used to having philosophy arguments. The reality is, I feel like Sam should just say, although maybe he doesn't have the opportunity because he's doing a 1v20 debate, what you just say is that, like, I'm not here to debate ethics right now, because it's a whole ass different conversation. But
So what's your argument?
this guy's not a Destiny viewer. This guy is a Destiny viewer? No, this guy's, sounds like a religious guy.
What's my argument as to why I don't want
have no
your
contention.
religion to? Well, because first of all, I don't think that you have the right to corner what God is telling us is right or wrong, and there are differences between religions. And so my argument is, like you're not going to keep halal or kosher, right? I mean, I don't believe that someone has a corner on religious truth. And the reason why we have
See, like, this position is untenable from Sam, or it's inconsistent, it's incoherent, and Sam doesn't even believe it. Because Sam will believe that people can have solid positions on what God commands or what some morality commands, because we're going to agree on criminal stuff, right? Criminal stuff is the bedrock of codified morality, because you're saying that the state has such an interest in this particular behavior that we can take away freedoms from you, we can take away rights from you, because you're doing things that we've all agreed are morally bad. Yeah.
We have a democracy is because we didn't want a king. And the kings came from the idea that their God said that they're the ones who's supposed to be king. And so we can disagree on this. I don't want to live in a country that is ruled by religious fundamentalism.
And if I do, you have no issue with that.
And
Wait, he doesn't live in a society that's what? That's grilled?
to live in a country that is ruled by
Uh-oh. And we got a crucial misspeak. Oh, no.
religious fundamentalism.
And if I do, you have no issue with that.
And no. And this is why I say, under Trump, yes, you have won.
Yes.
You have a
Only
bunch of
male and
Christian.
female. You're
You
right.
have a Christian
You're one.
nationalist,
Yes,
and
which is necessary.
so I concede the point that under Trump, your Christian nationalism has gained an advantage
Yes.
under this.
Sorry, we're gonna
And
have more
so
kids. We're gonna have less abortions. We're gonna have more family. We're gonna have stable family households. Sorry about better
Trans
education.
people, gay people should be
They should be
outlawed.
straight. They should be
Women should be secondary to their husbands.
Women should submit
right?
to the husbands.
Women
That doesn't
should
mean
submit to
that doesn't mean they're slaves.
Right,
It doesn't mean
no,
it means they are
I understand.
protected.
You
Okay,
gotta
let
have
me
it.
ask you.
So Sam is like on this. Sam is like 80% policy, maybe 20% ethics understanding. Maybe I don't know. I don't think Sam ever has these conversations. This guy on the right is way too philosophy broed though, because there are way softer ways of embodying the moral claims he has. You would never say that like women are slaves to men or whatever.
Should be secondary to their husbands.
Women should submit
right?
to the husband.
Like when you say women should be secondary husbands, he shouldn't say women should submit to their husbands. He should just say no, women should be free to do what they're best at, which is raising children, as opposed to making them slaves to greedy corporation owners. Like you agree they are, right? Corporations are bad, right? Why would we allow women to sell their labor when they could be better raised? Right? You phrase these things more positively. But maybe this guy is like way more hardcore than that. He doesn't want to run the risk of that. He's probably a YouTuber or something, but whatever.
Women
That doesn't
should
mean
submit to the
they are
husbands.
slaves.
Right,
It doesn't mean they are protected.
You
Okay,
gotta have it.
let me ask you.
No.
Should women be drafted? Should women be drafted?
Listen, I think
If they're equal, should they be drafted?
I think this is the vision that you have, and I think Trump supports it. I think the Christian nationalists he has throughout it.
How does this contend with people of other religions who say, well, my God said you're retarded? He can't. He either can't contend with them at all, or they go down some weird religious debate rabbit hole where they start arguing like scholarship of religious texts or whatever, which I don't know how he...
This government are all going to work towards your vision.
Yes.
And my hope is that when people look at this, they say, hey, wait a second. I don't want my life to be dictated by the notion of a Christian nationalist prescription. Now, you may win out. I mean, certainly, like if you look at a country like Iran, they have a theocracy there, and that... And apparently that's good for them if they want it.
My final point is whenever
I don't want to live in a
my final point is whenever we see people live out Christian values to its full extent, we see a great society. When we see people deviate from that, that's where all the problems arise.
I think you are at home in the Trump.
Thank you very much.
You've been voted out. Please return to your seat.
Sorry, guys. I think I have an issue with the...
Why wouldn't someone just agree to being a consequentialist? I mean, you could, but you can't really agree to any of these without having been a debate pedophile about them for a long time, because there's going to be really standard challenges to a lot of these things that somebody could ask you, and intuitively, they're not going to feel good or right. You're not going to be able to intuit your way through a philosophy debate. You just have to have had the debate or studied it or whatever, right? Because if somebody says like, oh, I'm a consequentialist. I believe that whatever produces the best consequence for most people is the thing that's the best for society. And someone will say, oh, okay, let's say that I showed you a study that showed that enslaving black people produces a better society on the aggregate for everybody. Would you be okay with that? Well, you'd say no, because humans intuitively have a deontology, they have an understanding of some kind of right. Like right thing, like a good or right thing that exists independent of any consequence, right? Like, I think freedom is good, even the freedom to make wrong choices, which is an anti-consequentialist thought, right? If I could constrain you to making only the correct choice, that doesn't feel as good to some people as making whatever choices they want and having the freedom to make mistakes, right? So you're gonna end up falling into a ton of traps as a consequentialist, and then once you fall into some traps because you haven't thought about it, the guy can just lead you around wherever he wants. You're like in a pinball machine of hitting all the standard objections to consequentialism when you don't even know you are a consequentialist because you haven't really given it the hardcore thought yet, Yeah. Would you say that from the point of view of an average person, that discussion was favorable to Sam? Maybe at the end, because the other guy, his rhetorical framing on things like women being submissive to men, that kind of stuff is probably not a good framing anymore, but yeah.
Implications of the prompt, I mean, of course, I'll stick on the religious fundamentalism. I think it's unfair to view Christianity separated from the ideology that Christianity informs, right? You have an ideology that you vote upon because you view it to be the truth that benefits everyone in a society. That's how a democracy works. I, as a Christian, have an ideology that informs my opinions, and I believe that it is the most moral and correct way for a society to function. So I think...
What do you do when someone asks you the basis for your morality or whatever? You have to figure out what platform you're on and if you want to get into it or not. Because if somebody asks you, like, what's the basis for your morality, that person is gearing up for a whole ass, like, epistemic and ethics debate, which is not, 99% of people aren't going to give a fuck about this. It's a very boring, like, super into the weeds debate or whatever. Destiny, random question, but do you believe women should be in the draft? Yeah, fuck them.
And I believe that it is the most moral and correct way for a society to function. So I think if we put religious fundamentalism in a box where you say any moral implications that I draw from this, religion is unable to be voted upon, unable to be pushed onto you because simply it's a religion, is unfair to view it that way. Religion is an ideology like all ideologies are. It's you vote away.
I don't mind you. I don't dispute the idea that you could have a religious ideology and want to see it imposed upon others. And
What would you say in this situation? I don't even know. What the fuck is this guy saying? Hold on. Fuck me.
Implications that I draw from this one moral. As a Christian, you have an ideology that you vote upon because you view it to be the truth that benefits everyone in a society. That's how a democracy works. I, as a Christian, have an ideology that informs my opinions, and I believe that it is the most moral and correct way for a society to function. So I think if we put religious fundamentalism in a box where you say any moral implications that I draw from this, religion is unable to be voted upon, unable to be pushed onto you because simply it's a religion, is unfair to view it that way. Religion is an ideology like all ideologies are. You vote away.
I don't mind you.
How do you respond to this question? Like I said, it depends on how cringe, on how much into the philosophy you want to get. But the answer is, in my opinion, that if you want to base, or this is a hard one. If somebody truly feels like they have like special revelation, they're getting messages from God about how to do morality. It's a hard one to debate. But what you would say is, we live in a democracy where there is no stated state religion, right? Which means that we have to compromise on some things that you might find morally objectionable, but you might have to either make them not illegal or explicitly allow for them, depending on the particular thing. There's going to be some core values that 99.9% of humans agree on, that we should make things illegal. So, for instance, like murder, rape, stealing, and then there's going to be stuff at the edges where you kind of have to allow democracy to make those decisions, because the only way the society works is if we can tolerate people's beliefs who believe different things than us, right? We're not a theocracy. We have to allow for some level of of disagreement, and then those things get codified in law, and you just kind of live with that, right? That's what you have to do.
I don't dispute.
But there's nothing wrong with like voting based on your religion. I mean, you can do that. You should do that if you truly believe it to be true. But you have to accept that sometimes you're not going to get your way, right?
The idea that you could have a religious ideology and want to see it imposed upon others, and it's not inconsistent with my claim. My claim is that Donald Trump is ushering in an element of Christian theocracy that you know, I can't remember his name, and you may be excited about, but I'm not excited about it. I don't think the vast majority of
I just don't know what the point of arguing this is with this group of people. Like, if the majority of these people are MAGA or hard MAGA, and a lot of them are like super Christian, then they're just going to be okay with this. They'll say like, I'm okay with making a more Christian country that's objectionable to some people. I don't want them in my country. Like, one of my values as a religious person might be, you know, not having sex with kids. And if you want to have sex with kids, then I'm okay kicking you out of my society. Technically, most humans will agree that there are some level of values that we don't want in society, you know? It's just a matter of where you draw the line at, I guess. I don't know what the point of this prompt is. I feel like it's a bad prompt, but...
Americans are, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't think this country was set up to be a theocracy, and I find it problematic that it will be, but others will be happy about it.
I think it's unfair as well to label any morals that comes from religion inherently immediately theocratic. Like, having a theocracy is something different than having...
I think love thy neighbor is a good precept, and I don't know that we should necessarily legislate it, but I think it's a good precept. I think there are things from religion that are good. I interviewed Does
Sam just suck at debating, or is he doing something else? I wouldn't say Sam sucks at debating. I just don't know why he's debating. Just these topics are just not good. These aren't good questions for him to debate at, I think. And he's good at, like, I feel like Sam is better at, like, policy and stuff. But it's also hard to know how good Sam truly is at debating, because Sam also cheats at debates the same way that I do, which is the same way that conservatives do. Conservatives are lucky when they do debates because they only debate retarded college kids, so they're allowed to win all the debates. And liberals or leftists or whatever, like Sam and me, we are lucky in all of our debates because we usually only debate retarded conservatives, so it makes us look smarter than we really are. So, you know, what are you going to do?
Desmond Tutu years ago, who said that, you know, religion can be, you know, is like a knife. It can be used to spread butter. It can be used to stab people. But that doesn't mean that I want religious doctrine to be the same as the law of the land. We have a democracy, and it was founded on trying to get out from some type of like religious oppression, which means one religion shouldn't dominate in this country. That's my sense.
Yeah, and I see that, but I think I have an issue with where you would perceive religious doctrine is derived from, right? A guy doesn't, at least in Christianity, a guy doesn't go in a room and come out and say that he has a secret message from God that everyone now has to follow. Religious doctrine is ruled over its reason.
Hold on. To be fair, I guess it depends on what really are, but isn't that literally what Moses did? Kind of, like literally?
Right, a guy doesn't, at least in Christianity, a guy doesn't go in a room and come out and say that he has a secret message from God that everyone now has to follow. Religious doctrine is ruled over, it's reasoned over, the same way any ideology is
ruling here.
I'm not talking about the validity of religious doctrine. I'm talking about religious doctrine supplanting democracy in civil society.
And I'm saying that religious doctrine is democratic inherently, and in the way that you...
Well, I mean, look, we can have a debate as to whether or not women should be subservient to men. I don't think they should be, and in a democracy, I don't think it's healthy.
Right, but when you said earlier with him that someone shouldn't have I don't know the exact word, like a chokehold on what is, you know, religious truth and what isn't religious truth, that's not how religious truth itself works, and that's not how religious truth is brought to the political table to have that work either, right?
I don't know, when Pete Hegseth is in a bar yelling, you know, we're going to kill all Muslims.
Well, that's, yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, but now he's in charge of the largest military in the history of the world. And I think, and he's informed by his Christian nationalism. I think that's a problem.
Right. Well, but
we can disagree on that.
Pause, you've been voted out by the majority.
Thanks, Sam. Boom.
Okay, so, Eleazar.
Question I'm thinking about today. You've said that Trump marks the rise of the influencer political economy, but my impression is there are influencers everywhere. New media is a thing everywhere. Why do other countries, for example Germany, seem to resist Trump-esque politics more than we do? That's a really good question. If I had to guess, my guess is going to come from the fact that America is a lot more lax or free, I guess, in terms of the political freedoms that are afforded to us, which lead to things like a highly deregulated media environment, coupled with the fact that Americans kind of like fundamentally distrust government over private enterprise, I think which kind of creates or sets up an environment for, and then also combined with the fact that Americans have this idea of wanting to be the best always, like every individual American always thinks they can be like the best. There's probably just like a ton of different cultural and legal things like that come together that make America the perfect breeding ground for that kind of stuff. Although I will say that this thing has been pretty recent, although influencers or whatever have been pretty recent, so, but...
mentioned his views on gay marriage, and I saw that you believe that essentially conservatives don't believe that gay marriage should be allowed. I want to ask everybody in this room, is there any law or legislation that Donald Trump has passed to prohibit same-sex marriage in the last 4 years?
Okay. Donald Trump is the president,
is there
he can't pass
anyone here
laws,
who would potentially oppose two people kissing in public that are of the same sex? You could raise your hand if you want.
Okay, we got 3,
Yes,
4, 5.
in public, kissing in public. No law against it, just your own opinion. Okay, so these are all people's opinions, right?
How much would your two-party system create a bigger risk for such actors to get a bigger majority? I don't really know. I go back and forth on the two-party thing. I've heard arguments in favor and against. I actually don't know. I just don't know. I mean, for Hitler, that was a parliamentary system, right? It's not like that was a two-party system that led to that, so I don't know how much I feel like that's a factor.
Right? The same way you have your opinions about Christians is the same way these people are allowed.
No, I don't have a problem with Christians.
Well, you do not believe that theology should be at its
We should not have a theocracy.
Correct. And so what I'm saying is, I think that Christianity, I'm a Catholic, I think that Christianity is, fundamentally very important to instill family values in myself as well as every person who wants to have children. Now let's talk about...
I'm okay with that too.
Let's talk about Order 14 14,166. That is an executive order that Donald Trump just imposed on identifying what is male and female. So I personally believe, as well as many transsexuals, friends of mine, believe that a woman is a biological female, as well as a man being a biological male. You are assigned what you are at birth. You are not assigned your gender later on. What you choose to express is something that is similar to wearing a garment, similar to what you decide to put on your face, and I don't think there should be laws or legislations dictating people or imposing laws to manipulate children, for example, to castrate their bodies at such a young age. 50% of children...
Do you know how many children are treated over the past 5 years, let's say? I think
This is it. So Gavin Newsom is kind of realizing this, or has realized it. Just don't defend it. Just don't. It's very easy to just say, yeah, SRS probably shouldn't. I'm pro-trans. I'm pro-puberty blockers for minors if they want. SRS for minors? Probably not. It's such a niche issue. So few people even go through with it. It's not worth it. So that's an easy one. Yeah, probably not. Okay, move on. Don't defend any part of it. Don't defend the fact that it only happens to you. It's not worth defending at all.
I think it was from 2018 to 22. There was a study that just came out from Harvard. Do you know how many children received gender-affirming care, but broken down into puberty blockers and then hormones?
Give me the numbers.
You tell me. I'm curious.
Well, I'm curious because you're bringing it up.
No, I have the numbers.
Okay, tell me.
I didn't, but
Tell
I'm
me.
curious if you know.
Tell me what the numbers
I
are.
promise to tell you after you tell me what you think
I'm
it
not
is.
gonna say that.
See, like, this is an issue for conservatives. It's not an issue of magnitude. Or, should I say magnitude? It's not an issue like how many people, like the quantity of people are affected. This is a moral position, right? It would be like saying, like liberals think they have a good argument here where they're saying, or progressive, whatever, where they're saying, well, only 4,000 people in the past 15 years have gotten SRS. There's no way it's 4,000. It's probably in the double digits or very, like 100 maybe, right? And that probably includes like intersex people getting surgeries because they need it. But it would be the equivalent of you arguing for, like, how many times has a parent and doctor been allowed to, like, gangbang their 7-year-old child? And then you arguing, like, okay, look, we've only authorized, like, 120 child-parent gangbangs over the past, like, 20 years. This is not a big issue. The conservative doesn't hear you saying, like, okay, well, it's not that many. They just hear you defending something that they find morally reprehensible that should be banned from government, period. It's just not, there's no number here that you can argue that makes this sound better to them. And probably for the majority of people. SRS for the majority of people for a minor, sex reassignment surgery, is going to be insane. Even most trans people would probably agree with that. The sex reassignment surgery for somebody under the age of 18, that means bottom surgery. That's an insane proposition. Most trans people, period, don't get sex reassignment surgery, even adults. It's just it's a whole huge thing, you know? Unless Sam's argument is going to be the number is 0.
Because I have a feeling
not playing
you think
this game.
No, I am playing this game because
Why?
I think you think it's much higher. When you tell me that kids are being castrated, I know you don't really know what these numbers are, and I do know these numbers.
Okay, well, I can tell you this much.
What?
Would mastectomies be included under SRS? I don't believe so. I think SRS is only bottom surgery. I don't think top surgery is included when you talk about SRS, sex reassignment surgery.
Was reported that scientifically every single child who has received gender-affirming care, about roughly 50% of them regret it. And 50%
There's no way that's true, but
of them are suicidal because of it. They're actually more depressed because of it.
How many of those kids? How many?
psychologist,
How
by the
many
way-
over the course of 5 years?
Well, tell me.
You tell me. Just give
I know
me
what
a
you're trying to do.
ballpark.
You're trying to put me in this chokehold of like,
No, I'm
I
not
gotcha
trying to put you in a
moment.
No, this is definitely a gotcha
No.
moment because I'm suggesting to you that you think this problem is much bigger than
It is a huge problem. Medi-Cal, you know, Medi-Cal covers any trans women.
I understand that, yes. And I know
medical coverage.
one person has had that surgery.
I don't understand how my taxes should go for an inmate prisoner
if
who
you
wants
have
to transition.
Well, I think because we got to do health care for prisoners, and you don't consider it real health care.
Gavin Newsom has imposed $2.6 billion in
900 kids
2022.
over 5 years.
That is a lot.
like that's like you're not cooking with that one. You're not cooking with that one because all conservatives 900 kids. That's how I say what about 900 kids. There's no way actually that number is right. I don't believe that number is right. That number must include intersex kids. I'm curious if anyone even tried us to study for that. I don't even think that number is correct for trans, like switching male to female or female to male. The thing is, for intersex people, some people are born with sex organs that are or genitalia that are like, I don't want to say fucked up. That's mean, but they're like they need help to make them more normalized with whatever the sex they have is. I feel like that number might include people that are intersex that end up getting some kind of like genital reconstructive or whatever surgery. 900 children over 5 years that got full-on SRS. I would be surprised if that was a real number. That's a way too high of a number than what I feel like it would be. But
A lot of children.
Puberty
That is a lot
blockers.
of children.
900
oh fuck, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to finish. My bad.
You don't consider it
Gavin
real
Newsom-
health care. But
Gavin
hold on, I
Newsom
don't
has
wanna get-
imposed
listen,
$2.6 billion in
It's 900 kids
2022.
over 5 years.
That is a lot of
receive
children.
Puberty
That is a lot of
blockers.
children.
900 kids over 5
8547
years.
just
You know how
passed,
many-
including
you know how
gender
many kids died
identity,
during
gender
COVID?
identity
All right.
to allow children
10
to be
kids a
separated from
month
their parents
died
just
from
due to not
accidental
affirming their
gun-
gender
gun deaths.
identity.
But here's the point. Listen, Trump is, how is he hurting these people? He just rescinded the ability of the Labor Bureau to investigate discrimination in workplace. Are you for trans people being discriminated in workplace?
They're never being discriminated.
Are
Hold on.
you for trans
You
people
asked-
being discriminated with
I'm very
housing?
passionate about that question. And can I answer it? Okay, so I believe that affirmative action should be.
It's not affirmative action.
Oh, then what is it?
It's anti-discrimination. It's
Okay,
not saying that you have to
regardless,
hire
hold on.
trans people.
Okay,
It's
well,
saying
hold on.
you can't fire someone when you find out they're trans.
Okay, well, hold on a minute. So when you hire someone or when you interview someone, for example, you are supposed to interview them based on their knowledge and their work ethic, not based on sex.
I'm not saying affirmative
based
action.
on their sexual
Are you
orientation.
allowed to fire them if you find out they're trans?
If you need to, then you should. If you need to, then
Right,
you
so
should.
we have a discrimination. I don't believe people should be discriminated against.
And that's not discrimination. It's based on your knowledge, not what you sleep with, not who you sleep with. Just saying.
Sam.
So I actually think that this liberal world order needs to be thrown away completely, and I think Christian nationalism would be a good alternative. What we're seeing right now is
And
just
congratulations.
yeah, and thank you. And yeah, I think what we're seeing right now is a culture of death. This is the most suicidal generation ever. We have millions of children dying by abortion. People aren't even reproducing. We're not even.
Oh
we don't
no,
even have
no
like
reproduction.
Should we mandate people reproduce?
No, I don't think we need to mandate. We can just stop them from killing their kids.
Forced pregnancies, yes.
Abortion.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, we have a fundamental disagreement on this, and my claim was that if you voted for Trump, it would be to your benefit if you want to outlaw abortion.
I think it would benefit everyone.
Yeah, I disagree. I think that.
But then Sam wins on the Trump because she's admitting that this is what she'd want,
bring
right?
back the family unit to stop having women just thrown into the workforce.
Maybe we shouldn't allow women to choose to divorce unless their husbands say it's okay.
I mean, I don't really believe in divorce in general, so like, sure.
Right. I mean, this I think though reinforces my point
Yes.
that if you are
But it would be better for society.
a Christian
It would be better
Democrat,
for
then
everybody
you
in
would be
society.
happy.
And same with xenophobic national. Like, what's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
To be xenophobic nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the
European.
dominant
White
culture. It's rooted in
European. Ah, nice. The legendary female Nazi. We don't see many of these. Okay.
European identity.
White. So your argument is
That has been the dominant
it's-
culture.
Just to be
and
clear,
we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying
Your-
you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then if that's not the identity?
You should just start drilling them. Rooted in European identity. Okay, well, how did we engage with our European ancestors? Well, we rebelled against them. What was like part of the reason why we did that? Well, because they had like kings and queens. So you can say that part of our identity is rooted in European ancestry. I mean, definitionally that has to be true because we came from Europe. But didn't we also reject a lot of European stuff? Didn't we also reject a lot of the European identity too? Isn't that kind of where America came from? That's why we're not a colony of Great Britain anymore? Wasn't that kind of the point? Like, ask questions. Make them run down that line of thought a little bit more, I think.
Of America.
Well, I think the identity of
For the
America.
majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even
1960s, she means 1964 hot seller. She's a Nazi. This is a neo-Nazi, 100%. It's always the 64 hot seller immigration bill that sort of increases evil brown people that came to the country.
A melting pot in that regard.
yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're
Assimilating, not ethnically, but ideologically. That's what melting pot means.
to the dominant
But
culture. Is that not what melting means?
no, it doesn't
And now
mean
instead we're saying there's something
to
wrong
the
with
dominant
xenophobia.
culture. No, I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. Like, you and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice.
He shouldn't grant that. And I understand Sam doesn't do a lot of fucking neo-Nazi arguments on the internet. But, like, you shouldn't even grant that. You don't have a fundamental disagreement on ideology. I mean, you do, but she just has a fundamental misunderstanding of history, of U.S. history, of European history, of what the current terms she's using even are. Again, it's funny. The only people that believe in a coherent European identity are American neo-Nazis. Like, nobody ever speaks of this outside of the far right in the United States. It's just the most retarded thing in the world to vaguely notion to. Is just some concept of unified European ancestry or identity. It's so fucking stupid.
And people, I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's
I
problematic.
disagree. I don't think Trump's like anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Like Trump's basically a Democrat from like 15 years ago when it comes to social
So you don't think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely nowhere close. No.
He's not xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's trying to import a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh, so you want to get them out too?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're making.
Is she like an influencer? Is this like a person who does content? Or is this just a random off-the-street neo-Nazi? I don't know if all these people are like TikTok people or anything
my
else.
argument for me.
All right. Well, I'm just saying his argument. Like,
We all came from the country of Europe. True.
My next claim is the GOP will destroy Social Security and healthcare. Let's see.
So, what if Social Security should go away? That's my question to you.
Because Social Security keeps 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty, and not only does it keep our elderly out of poverty, it's essentially a social insurance program that protects you if at the end of your life you don't have enough money to survive.
But
And
right
so-
now, do you know that it's also the albatross around our generation's neck?
No, it isn't.
Okay, so
let me just explain this.
Well, you're
Let me
going to
explain
go
this to you.
back to lecturing me about Social
because,
Security.
Well,
we don't
that's
have.
what we're talking about. Social
Yeah,
Security.
Social Security is one of the top 3 funded.
Social Security is almost the biggest thing that our government does.
Exactly, and we are
it
more than
keeps
$30 trillion in debt.
2/3 of our- well, first of all, Social Security cannot contribute legally to the deficit.
Because they don't even account it in the federal deficit
That's
every year.
correct.
Well, because it's not paid for. It shouldn't be paid for by the ordinary budget. It's paid for by your contributions to Social Security.
We have
Because
30
it's
years of
self-funding. When Social Security started in 1936, you have more workers than retirees because people haven't entered into retirement. By 1970, it was at 3.5 to 1. Now it's at 2.5 to 1. But productivity has increased during that time, so the amount of money paid into Social Security has been up there. The reason why we are running out of money just for the trust fund, not for Social Security. Like I say, if we do nothing with Social Security now, it is statutorily unable to contribute to the debt. The math is right there. The reason why the trust fund is running out is because wealth inequality has hoarded so much money above the cap.
You don't think it's because
So
the
if you-
government does a
no,
terrible job managing their money?
no,
They have a huge
not at
spending
all.
problem, and they go, look at all this money
They
we have
knew
for
this in
Social Security
1983.
that's earmarked for 60 years from now that we're just going to spend on something
40
right
years
now.
ago, they predicted this. This is an actuarial table. Accountants sit there and look at it. This is a very easy math.
How am I just so good? Wait. I'm going like 2 different ways. 1 second. Fuck. What did I tweeted a while ago? That conservatives would kick Reagan out of the current party. I don't remember when I tweeted this. I did. I said conservatives would not accept Reagan right now. He'd be a rhino. Or they would just call him a fucking liberal. Apparently this person is an influencer. I used to go to conservative conferences where Reagan was applauded as the best president ever, but I've completely changed my view on him after realizing that he's responsible for kicking off the libertarian subversion of conservatism that we see dominate the right today. And that homosexuality is so degenerate that it feels unchristian to even talk about what it actually entails. And it's insane that average people, let alone conservatives, ever accepted this as normal, let alone positive or wholesome. I don't know a single right-wing Zoomer who believes the official 9/11 narrative. Easy. Boom.
Problem.
Accountants in the government are always right? That's totally the thing that you're saying? That they're
Oh, all the numbers are lies. Great argument.
60 years from now that we're just going to spend on something
40
right
years
now.
ago, they predicted this. This is an actuarial table. Accountants sit there and look at it. This is a very easy math problem.
Accountants in the government are always right? That's totally the thing that you're saying? That they're always correct about money, right? That's why we have a $40 trillion debt problem.
The problem isn't the math with the 40 trillion debt problem. It's that you have tax
It's the
cuts and
spending problem. I totally agree with you, which I would argue is part of why Social Security's gone in the hole already.
That's simply not true.
Oh, okay.
So the problem with Social Security is that just we borrowed from the fund, right? And then we have to pay back. That's the issue. It's not that the math was wrong, but...
So we're out of money from the Social Security bucket.
No. Statutorily, by that I mean by law, Social Security pays for itself. If we do nothing, the 6.2% that your employer and your employee pays into it will pay out 78% of benefits starting in 2033.
And why is it going down? If everything's so much better,
Why is it going down? Because the federal government borrows money from the Social Security fund. Sam, say this, please.
is it only 78%?
If we raise the cap,
No, don't
there's a
talk
cap right now at $176,000. So for instance, if you make $100,000, you pay $6,000.
Also, by the way, I don't think raising the cap would actually do anything to help shore up Social Security. Because you have a maximum that you can pay into Social Security during your lifetime. If you raise the cap on your wages of what is a Social Security taxable wage, you'd probably just hit that cap earlier and then you would just stop paying into Social Security. Right? You can only pay so much into Social Security before the federal government says, hey, you've paid enough, no more, and then you don't pay any more into it. But you could raise that cap as well. I don't know if people even know that same cap exists. But I'm pretty sure the reason why the Social Security fund is quote unquote running out of money or is out of money is because the federal government borrows from the Social Security fund and then has to pay back.
$6,200 into that.
A year,
A year. But if you make $4 million, do you know how much money you pay into Social Security? $6,200.
And so why should wealthy people hang on? Why should wealthy people pay a higher percentage?
No, they should pay the same percentage. 6.2 on $400,000, 6.2 on $1 million.
And why should they pay even more money at all? Because they make more money? Again, you fundamentally have this idea that because you have an idea that because somebody makes more money, that's fundamentally wrong, right?
No.
Like, if you go out with a friend to eat, and you have a rich friend, and if you make $32,000 a year, and your friend makes $500,000 a year, and he wants to take you to a nice steakhouse, do you guys think you split the bill 50-50 on that? Why not? You're eating the same food, shouldn't you? No, of course not. The guy makes way more money, can splurge a little bit more, and it doesn't even affect him. This is marginal utility. Explain it, Sam.
No, I don't think it's fundamentally wrong. I think that they should pay more taxes.
Have you seen the Legal Mindset guy's video? Absolute wild clip. What, of me? No. Legal Mindset and the other weird Kiwi Farms lawyer guy have some of the worst legal analysis of anything regarding my stuff. I don't know if they just have never practiced or studied tort or civil procedure or anything, but everything they say about, or at least 80% of what I've seen them say about anything involving my court stuff is fucking beyond retarded. But, listen, have fun with it, okay?
Now, I do think as a society, we should not allow billionaires. So for instance,
pay more taxes generally.
Why should the highest tax rate and the greatest expansion?
No, why do these talking points? I hate these talking points. Just explain why. We don't have to do some historic. Just explain why. Wealthy people can afford to pay more.
We can pay more taxes generally. Why should the highest tax rate and the greatest expansion of our economy? Hang on, does a billionaire get more money from Social Security if they went to go take it than I would?
No,
of course not. So why should they pay more?
I'll tell you what.
Well, they could get more money if the worker was only earning $40,000 his entire life. I think it's possible that they wouldn't have paid in enough to get the maximum benefit from Social Security. So it's possible that they could actually, but
because it is a social insurance program that keeps you.
There's no lifetime cap on Social Security taxes, only a yearly limit. No, I'm pretty sure there is a lifetime cap because I think you can log into the SSA to find out how close you are to how close you are to actually hitting that cap, so you don't have to pay Social Security anymore. Wait. I have to go and look all this shit up again when you find out. Because I think there's a maximum amount that you can get from Social Security, assuming you've paid the maximum amount in. But there's a maximum amount total of Social Security wages that once you've hit that cap, I don't think you can't pay anymore and you don't get any more out from it. I'm 99% sure of this. No, I'm 85% sure of this. Hold on. What's the current cap? Yearly. For everybody talking yearly cap, these people don't know what they're talking about. The yearly cap is just, there's only a certain dollar amount that your income is taxed on FICA-related stuff, which is $100-something thousand. And then past that, you don't have any more taxable income that you have to pay FICA towards. But what I'm saying is, I think like if you're at that cap for like 20, 30 years or whatever, and you can contribute the maximum amount to your individual Social Security account, and then past that, I don't believe the government collects, I don't think, it collects any more Social Security from me. But I have to, I need to go look this up and find this again. I think the cap's based on the age you retire. No. You can retire at certain ages to get more or less Social Security, but I'll look this up later.
from being in poverty when you're a senior. And the reason why I think billionaires should pay more taxes than other people, even a higher percentage, is because it works better for society. The greatest expansion we've had in this country in terms of economics and the least amount of wealth disparity was in the 40s and 50s and 60s in this country. Do you know what the top marginal rate was?
90%.
Do you know
Yeah,
what it
I don't
was?
know the exact number, but
If you made over $470,000 in 1955, every dollar you would make above that was taxed at 90%.
So I have a question.
90 cents on every dollar was taxed above 470. So if we had, in today's dollars,
which is wild, by the way. But
and it's also the greatest expansion we had of the economy.
yeah, you can expand for a time, and then you see places, you see like Nordic countries that were like, oh, let's tax the hell out of our rich people, right? And then they go, whoops, we messed up. We can't actually live off of our terrible. We basically are able to live off our economic boom that they had between like the 40s and the 90s, and then we have to revert all of that because we
Our economic boom that lasted 50 years?
made a terrible choice. We were able to have a party for 50 years until we realized we ran through all the money that capitalism got us. So let me ask you real quick. So the average person, right? Right now they fundamentally look at Social Security, young people like me, and they go, I'm going to have that money sitting waiting for me when I retire. Since your opinion is whatever works best for the average person is better, wouldn't you rather shift towards something that I would agree with, which is getting people that are 19, 20 years old into funding their own retirement rather than relying on other people to fund it for them?
Like a 401k.
Sure, not just a 401k, but for IRAs, any other type of retirement. Would you agree? Would we agree with that?
Social Security was set up as part of a three-legged stool where back in the day when I was a kid, we had defined benefit pensions where you'd know how much money you would get out. That all shifted in the 80s to defined contribution where you know how much you put in. The 401k started during that Reagan era. It has been a disaster because the fact of the matter, for better or for worse, people just don't save in the way that you're talking about.
Why?
It would be nice
if the government were changing the mindset and actually pushing that cultural shift towards, we're not just going to hand you money when you're 65. You have to plan for it right now.
We had a 40-year experiment with that, the government affecting the cultural mindset, and it failed.
We've had a 40-year experiment of everybody. You know what my parents say? Do you know what the grandparents say? They go, well, I'm just waiting for my social security check to come in, rather than I have $800,000 waiting for me because I thought about it when I was 19 and 20 because I didn't have this grab bag of money waiting for me. You're assuming that you're assuming that
I try and tell my kids.
So we agree. We should get rid of Social Security and phase it out. Well, no. So we should phase out. How would you listen to this idea? You phase out Social Security to where people who have 5 years left before they retire get 100% of the benefits, and then people like me who have 40 years until we retire,
Dude,
I'm not gonna get it. I'm gonna get screwed either way.
No,
you really think I'm gonna get Social Security someday?
I guarantee you, at the very least, you're going to get 78% of your benefits.
Because if people are paying, and it's like the minimum I think that it'll pay out, assuming people are still paying for it.
That's awesome. I'll get $9,000 a year. That's great.
In calling for our government to increase the cap, in fact, get rid of the cap, then your grandkids will get Social Security.
I would much rather, and again, maybe we'll just disagree, but I would much rather result to, hey, 20-year-olds, please save for your own retirement, invest for your own retirement, because the government is bad at dealing with money.
And what happens
don't
if
rely
they
on
don't?
them. What happens if what?
What happens if those 20-year-olds don't listen to you?
The same thing that happens if a 20-year-old just doesn't go and get a job because I tell them to.
No.
They're going to have a problem, but that's not my fault.
No, I got news for you. It's not your fault, but there used to be in New York City 30,000 people sleeping
No one in this room was alive before Social Security. We've all lived under this, just like the
and it
income
has
tax.
been the most successful government program in the history of our government.
Things that are successful don't just start to die out and end up in the
dying out.
It's the grab bag of money, the massive excess that was there in the early years because of the 42-to-1 beneficial.
There wasn't a massive excess in 1930.
42-to-1 is a massive excess.
There weren't that many people who had entered into the Social Security program.
And the fact that
in 1970 it was 3.5 workers to 1. Now it's 2.5, but productivity has increased it. I've told you why the Social Security Trust Fund is running out. It is because of wealth disparity. Billionaires hiding and hoarding their money above the cutoff line, which is $176,000. That's the cap. If you remove the cap, your grandkids
billionaires aren't keeping $2 billion under their mattress. They're investing it back in.
They're just putting it into some stock market, or they're just looking around.
The stock market, that's a good place for people with their money, though. The leftist econ arguments.
What do you think a 401k or an IRA relies upon? It relies on the stock market and things like that.
Yeah, a 401k relies on the stock market, and I knew people who were retiring in 2008 when the stock market tanked, and they got screwed.
No, they didn't get screwed, Sam, because they shouldn't be making a full withdrawal from their 401k just because the market goes down, especially if you're using it as a fucking, especially if you're using it as a retirement account.
But that's a whole other problem. I would argue that's largely driven by the government being, once again, terrible with policy and creating bad economic hazards.
Social Security is there regardless of what happens with the stock market.
Okay, pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return your seat.
Micah.
Hey, Micah. Good evening. Sam. Nice to meet you.
There's an idea that you
this guy.
that you have that basically government can kind of fix all these problems, right? If you didn't save for retirement, well then the government can just come in, swoop in, and save you from that.
Well, not swoop in. It starts on literally the day you get your Social Security.
Sure. It swoops in once you retire, right?
Why are we saying swoops in? I'm sorry, you paid Social Security. That's money you've paid in, and this is what you're entitled to receive out. I don't like this being described as swoops in.
You can,
you pay into it.
Right, exactly. And so you believe this idea, basically, that government is an effective organization, which it does time and time again, if you look at history, that's proven to not be true.
Wow! You should ask. I want you to expand on that. Proven to not be true. In what way? In what manner? Like, the government doesn't even necessarily compete in the same arenas. What are you talking about?
When you're hidden at retirement, you don't know. This is an insurance program. That's it. It's an insurance program, and it basically says you're insured against eating cat food when you're 65. And it works. It works.
No, it doesn't. You should have, you should have your own personal...
How doesn't it work?
How doesn't it work? Well, I mean, we've already discussed the details of how it is just completely failing as a program. Like,
how is it failing?
Because I'm not going to receive any Social Security.
I've already told you right
I know. I'm not going to rehash out that debate.
Well,
the main
look at
issue.
the numbers. You've just been told this, and you know why you've been told it? It's because they want to rate it to give tax cuts to rich people. That's why.
So are you saying there are the Trump tax cuts were only for rich people? You're saying
Nope, this guy is the king of fallacious argumentation. He did the same shit to me. No one has said that. Just they disproportionately help rich people. What? Oh, I have to build a track first. Can you still store things in cargo wagons? Is it still space efficient? Or was it not space efficient? I don't remember. Wait, it might have never been space efficient. Never mind.
No, I'm not saying they're only for rich people.
Oh, okay, then how can
rich
they
people
only...
benefited more from it than low-income people. And
what do you mean benefited more from that? Because
He's just trying to catch him on some technicality. What do you mean benefited more from it? Because the number of... He's looking for the ultra technicality, but...
already went over the percentage
they
numbers,
don't
and we
need
know
the
that's
money.
not true.
They don't need the money as much, and they don't need it.
What are you talking about? These rich people are the people that are investing in smaller businesses. These are the people that are giving other people jobs.
Nobody gives you... One day, some competent left-wing business person will come up here who has ran a business, who knows how businesses work, and will counter this dog shit conservative talking point. You do not give away jobs. You do not give away employment. You hire people as a cost of doing business when you have too much demand for whatever product you're selling, right? Or when you think you can make money by hiring them, okay? Labor is always a cost of doing business. It is a cost of doing business. You don't just give away jobs. Nobody does that. That's not how businesses work.
To allow them to provide for their family.
Nobody does that.
What's up? Good to be back.
Nice to see you.
Okay, yeah, nice to see you too. I want to zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
So obviously you're pinpointing on Social Security, and there's a reason for that.
And healthcare, too.
Oh, okay, but Social Security is the program that you're very concerned about, and that.
Medicare, I'd love a Medicare for all program, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the reason you're focusing in on Social Security precisely is because Social Security is the most successful in a shadow of social welfare programs and government spending. That it's like the Democrats.
It's also the biggest bucket of money.
It is the biggest bucket, but the Democrats have these social programs and it's deficit spending, and it just never ends. It's never enough money. So you're focusing on Social Security because it is the one successful child, but you're ignoring all the social welfare state that we become.
Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid make up
the majority.
over like a
right. So 70%
of our
70% of our federal spending is mandatory. And you're right. It's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on debt. 8% of we're paying for that. So the Democrats run on this. Essentially, they want a welfare state. So yes, Social Security might help a lot of people, but it's like we're closer to a welfare state than we've ever been. 38%.
The American economy is one of the most productive economies in the world. What are you talking about? Our economy is insanely productive. We lead the world in some of the most important cutting-edge industries today, like fucking AI and all this software-related bullshit. Like, what, for manufacturing, Elon Musk brought his fucking stupid rocket company and his car company here. Like, what do you mean? We're a welfare state? The United States of America is a welfare state? What the fuck are you talking about?
Percent of the GDP in the U.S. is a welfare state than we've ever been. 38% of the GDP in the U.S. is government spending. That's the highest since World War II. So us conservatives, we're trying to tell you, like, you guys are fiscally really
So are you worried
irresponsible.
about the tax cuts and what that does to the debt and deficit?
The tax cuts increased revenue.
No.
Yes.
No, oh my god.
I want to tell you about Kansas.
Okay, tell me about Kansas.
Sam Brownback in 20...
Fuck Kansas and fuck anything else and fuck the Laffer curve this guy brings up. Just look at the congressional, is it the CBO Congressional Budget Office? Is that what it is? Like, look at all the projections. Look at the effect of the Trump tax cuts. These were not revenue drivers for the government. They weren't. They just weren't. They're way too aggressive. And the economy is going to contract under Trump. So it's not even doing what it's supposed to do. It's just not, that's not true.
2012 brought in Arthur Laffer, you know the Laffer curve, right? That's
Laffer curve, yeah.
the argument that if you cut taxes, you're going to get more revenue.
Which is true if our tax rate was absurdly high, but it's not.
And that's exactly what happened. No, that's exactly what happened
It
to TJ.
destroyed Kansas. By 2016, the
Let's look at the
Republican
numbers.
legislature raised taxes again. They destroyed their education
Reality
system.
is against you, my
Look
friend.
up Kansas.
The numbers
during
say
the Trump administration, they sent Sam Brownback. They made him the ambassador to faith because they didn't want this guy
If
around
you want
because
to tax
it was a
the rich,
disaster.
you should vote Republican because they pay more in taxes. Under Republican, it was the same as
Revenue went
Reagan.
down.
It was
Look
the same
at
as Trump.
Kansas. Look at Kansas.
Look at the U.S. We
Kansas.
have the numbers
It
for
was
this.
the perfect
Obama's
experiment.
best year,
It destroyed
federal income
Kansas.
revenue, is pales in comparison to Trump's worst year. Do you get what I'm saying? Does more taxes necessarily equate to more revenue?
Yes.
No, that's where you're wrong. So if you look at TCJ, and I'll say the numbers again, the top 1% paid more into the system. GDP grew, wages grew 3% year over year under TCJA. So when you're saying tax the rich, like,
But you're
it sounds
saying,
like you're actually a Republican. You just don't know that.
you're not. You're confusing causation with
No, I'm not.
correlation
No, I'm
because Obama's economic recovery was way too slow, and I agree with you on that.
Way too slow.
Way too slow.
When you have tons of stimulus, what you're doing is you're creating the Great Depression for the bottom 90%. All the assets inflate. So who does that benefit? Your policies benefit the 1%.
No,
Inflation
no.
disproportionately benefits the 1%. It's an immoral tax on the poor. And that's exactly what happens when they
COVID
stimulate.
inflation was not a function of monetary stimulus.
It absolutely was. They increased the money supply by $6 trillion.
No, I understand they did that. I understand they did that, and they could pull it back on taxes with the wealthy if they wanted to. You're making an argument for higher taxation.
Okay, do you think taxing people makes the country wealthier? Is that what you think?
Does it make the country
Do taxes
wealthier?
make us wealthy? Is that government increasing taxes? Are we now more wealthy? Do you think that the only way you create wealth is by producing?
If you tax and spend, government stimulus can increase GDP, of course.
Is GDP wealth?
Is GDP wealth?
If we import 10 million immigrants and our GDP goes up, are we now wealthier? If the housing
How do you define wealth? What do you mean?
costs more,
If houses cost more, isn't real estate being more isn't real estate costing more? Isn't that like part of an increase in wealth? It depends on who you're talking to. If you own a house, then yeah, houses costing more do increase your wealth. What do you mean? If you own a business and you're looking to employ people, having immigrants come in that you can employ does increase your wealth. Yeah, what do you mean?
If CPI goes up because there's more
No,
people...
I understand. And inflation is under control. And we haven't pulled that money
not the
off
basic
table.
economics.
I'm just saying that...
Inflation is back down because we had a problem
The welfare
with
state makes us all
logistics.
poorer.
No,
Yes, it does. And you can see
It
it
doesn't.
across history.
If you compare...
People want to
if you
come here for
compare-
economic opportunity. We don't want handouts. We want opportunity. That's why as an immigrant, that's why my family came here. We left the socialist paradise. It's garbage. The people that come here want economic opportunity. And you're stifling that. You're undermining capitalism and the free markets with your utopian vision.
There is no free market.
Well, there's not anymore.
No, there's
But
not.
now there used to be.
No.
That is what makes America the greatest. That's what makes America is the greatest economy in the world because of the free market. Free market capitalism is the most ethical and
America
moral.
had was when we had 90% tax.
That's not true. The numbers are against you.
1940, 1950, 1960, the highest top marginal
So
tax rate
stagflation
was
so happened in the
90%,
70s.
and we
When
had
Milton Friedman predicted stagflation in the 70s with your social welfare.
We had OPEC.
When
we had
your welfare
oil shock that drove inflation way up, and that was a function of OPEC. But in the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s, highest top marginal tax rate was 90%.
because we have an
we had
industrial
wealth
revolution.
inequality.
Nobody was paying that high tax rate, but nobody's gonna call Sam out on this, so fuck, who cares? Also, who cares?
Post World War
We had
II
something called the
industrial
Great Compression,
When
and more
we
people
had
enjoyed
post-World War II industrial revolution. We were producing more than every other country.
Good conversation. Keep cutting each other off. Yes.
That's what
Kings.
creates
And we were
production.
doing that with a 90% tax rate on the wealthiest
Which was
individuals.
less when
90%.
Reagan came in and brought it down, the top 1% paid more. Can you believe that?
No, no,
Do you know that federal
when-
income tax?
when-
Wait. You know federal income tax? It was when it was established.
You're talking about the Laffer curve, and I'm
No, I'm
telling
not
you, go
talking
look
about that.
at
Here's my last claim.
Kansas.
Federal income tax in 1913, when it was established, was only targeted at the people making 100,000 and over. Now we don't even. Most people don't even know that. It's just a base tax. Why? Because the projections that they had of taxing the rich didn't work out like they thought. Because it doesn't work out. There's a ton of loopholes. The rich are smart. Like the
I
rich people are smart.
He's just
for
saying
Our
there's
top
loopholes.
marginal rate still produced an effective tax rate that is
It was
double what
lower.
it is today.
It was lower.
50%
More
effective
taxes
tax
does
rate.
not create more wealth.
Yes.
More taxes
Well,
does
I
not
don't know
create-
what you mean by wealth. I mean,
Well, it's very simple. It's production of goods and services.
More
That's what
taxes.
wealth is. That's what
More
creates wealth.
taxes.
Yeah, but what do you produce goods and services for? This is why the demand and the supply side are both important. Sam is stronger. When you redistribute wealth to like, when you give money to poor people, they spend it on consumption. Consumption is important because it drives an economy, right? Why do you think like consumer confidence is such an important metric for the economy? How much money people are willing to spend is important. Investment in businesses like capital is also important because you want people to be able to borrow money to open businesses. Wealthy people are really good at providing capital. Poor people are really good, or working class people, whatever, are really good at providing consumption. If you feel like your consumption versus your capital allocation is out of whack, or for a variety of moral reasons, like you don't want people to be homeless or starving down the streets, then you change your distribution a little bit more. Taking money from wealthy people to some extent and then giving it to poor people can increase your economy. It increases the total amount of wealth by literally giving poor people more opportunity to buy things because the consumption there is good for your economy. It depends on, like, there's a balance here to all these things. It's not like you're destroying wealth by taxing wealthy people. Like, investing money in the stock market is not the only way that you can contribute to an economy, you know? And super wealthy people just aren't going to be buying a fuck ton of shit for proportionally based on their income.
I mean,
Wealth is very simple. It's production of goods and services.
More
That's what wealth
taxes.
is. That's
more
what
Yeah, but consumption's you have to consume to produce as well. Nobody's going to produce stuff that nobody's consuming, right?
taxes.
Money. People think money is
more
wealth.
taxes
Money buys wealth.
creates
Money-
less wealth inequality, and then you have wealth that is shared by more people rather than being in the hands of a plutocracy or a plutonomy, and then you get stuff like an oligarchy.
We've seen what happens when you punish your top producers over and over again. They leave. They stop producing. The government,
Capital flight's a myth.
No, it isn't. You cripple the economy. Guess what happens next?
Wait. When did this happen in the country? When we had a 90%
It happens in
tax
every
rate?
socialist country.
Capital flight is absolutely not a myth. But the idea that the United States, I think, has ever enacted a policy that's been brutal enough to cause capital flight, that is a myth. I don't think that capital flight in any real sense has ever happened in the United States. Capital flight can happen if you get crazy with your policies. Capital flight meaning investors or people with money realize, like, wait, this economy is fucked. We're going to get super fucked. We need to get the fuck out. And I think that there have been forms of capital flight in countries before, but in the United States, I don't believe this has happened yet.
This is the socialist playbook.
This is
They're like,
not
they come in and they're like, guys,
this is not a socialist country, and I'm not calling for socialism to have high tax
it is
rates.
more socialist
We
than
can-
ever before.
No,
we have
it's
more
not.
social welfare spending.
No.
GDP, I'll say it again, 38% of government spending, of GDP is government spending. We have more social welfare programs. And look at what happens. But how come we have all these programs and the black community is still living in poverty?
What programs are you talking about that are geared towards the black community? We during in 2021
What do you mean, what programs?
we expended. Hold on. In 2021.
What do you mean? What program? How much money is enough?
In
When is it enough?
2021,
You have the
in
richest country in the
2021,
world.
We
I just
offered
can't-
$300.
The way you guys think is just insane to me. Like,
guys?
In 20, let me just finish this.
All right, go
in
ahead.
2021, we extended the child tax credit, which is basically a payment. $300
Social
per
welfare, so
social
great.
welfare.
Yes.
We cut child poverty in 1 year
doesn't
by
care.
45%. By 45%, but because no Republican would join the Democrats, and Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin voted against this provision in Bill Back. I'm talking 2021. From 2021 to 2022, we cut child poverty in this country by 45%. Look it up.
I feel like when I look at it,
I guarantee.
Ali has never heard this
I will
before.
give you my
That's so
phone
sad.
number. Call me
All
if I was wrong.
right, we'll call.
I'll do it off camera. And you will see that we cut child poverty in a year
Okay.
by 45%.
I'll look into your claim.
All right, guys.
No, we'll talk after.
My next claim is Trump's policies make the rich richer and the working class poorer.
These are all fucking Marxist. Not really, they're not Marxist. They're not Marxist. That's not true. I shouldn't say that. But these are all like based on like this fucking lefty like class fucking corporation billionaire bad, rich people bad. There are so many more factual, solid ground claims that we could make. Like, why not talk about like corruption? And you can even hit your billionaire thing right here. Talk about like the corruption that Donald Trump has made like available for accessing the United States government, right? The Trump's crypto schemes where anybody can make a payment to his administration around the world and it's untraceable, and we have no idea if he's like currying favor with people. Or people are currying favor with him. Or I feel like the criminal justice stuff is important. Maybe he doesn't care about that, but the overall contraction of the economy due to his tariffs? Why not like Donald? How about this claim? Donald Trump's tariffs hurt the working class. Why doesn't like that? Oh no, wait. Well, I was gonna say the tariffs haven't happened yet, but Donald Trump has promised tariffs, so he could still argue it from the past, and it'd be really funny they'd actually occurred by now. Like, I don't know if the crypto Ponzi bullshit has happened in January yet, though. I think he already started the crypto scheme. No? Donald Trump launch crypto scheme. When did that happen? Fuck. $Trump coin. It launched on January 17th. I don't know when in January this was recorded, so.
Hello, sir. Hey, Hunter Howard. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, so do you mind if I ask what policies in specific are you referencing to?
Tax cuts for the rich. I think his idea of tariffs on countries in the way that he's talking about will make people poorer. I think all of the work that they're doing in terms of attacking the government agencies will make people poorer because, when you get agencies that are supposed to protect us from corporate interests, they will externalize their costs, those corporations, instead of actually assuming themselves. So their profits are made on the backs of all of us, whether it's our health, our protection from consumer rights, worker rights. His anti-union policies will make us poorer.
So real quick, I'm going to touch on one of the things that you said. Now, there was a lot to unpack there, but
there's a lot of policies.
Yeah, we'll start at the very beginning. You talked about taxes. Let's talk about, in his first term, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. There are a couple things in that specific policy that actually do benefit the middle class and the lower class more than the top 1%. So you mentioned taxes, right? But in that, from the IRS data that came out, the middle class and lower class got
The doubling of the standard deduction probably benefited poorer people more because they don't itemize their taxes, and that probably just helped a whole bunch of them save money on their taxes. That the doubling of that standard deduction, I think, was a really big deal for a lot of people, which is why a lot of poor people liked those tax cuts because they saw money back as well.
In fact, I think they ended up saving like 3 to 4% on their taxes, on their tax cuts, whereas the billionaires only save 2%. So if we're talking an actual dollar amount, sure, the billionaires save more, but they also make a lot more, right? Also, the billionaires don't really care about an extra grand or two. In that specific policy, the child tax credit doubled from $1,000 per household to $2,000. No billionaire cares about an extra grand in their pocket, but I can guarantee you the working class does. So how would you
Well, if you're going to go by child tax credit, the Democrats were offering way more there than Trump did, but
rebuttal that?
I would say, in terms of the taxes themselves, well, the policies that Trump wants to pursue this time are to expand those taxes for wealthy folks. And over time, what starts to happen is you have this wealth disparity, and as the wealth disparity increases, it becomes harder for working people, essentially, to keep up. Things become more expensive, you get inflationary pressures when you have people with more money. We have more and more billionaires than we did 4 years ago, and a large part of that was obviously COVID, but a large part of it is also money starts to accelerate. Once you, like you say, when a millionaire gets a tax cut for a couple of grand, or 60 grand, or $500,000 at the end of the day, they end up investing that and it ends up growing because they're not out there working for their money. Their money is just is doing all the work.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think we can agree with you on that when it comes to, billionaires and millionaires and there being a wealth gap in our country, right? I don't think Republicans or liberals would disagree on that, but I think where we will fundamentally disagree is under Trump, right? The stats show that take-home pay was higher for the middle class and the lower class. Inflation was down. They weren't paying as much on taxes.
Inflation was down, but wage growth was actually greater during the Biden administration.
Well, that's because due to COVID when a lot of people lost jobs.
No. I mean, I'm talking in percentage comparison between those 4 years and these past 4 years, wage growth grew, not from as a baseline on 2020, but I'm talking as a baseline from 2016.
Interesting. Okay, well then another point that I want to talk on with you real quick is you talked about slashing government agencies, for instance, the Department of Government Efficiency. I'm sure you've heard about that a lot in the news.
That's not a government agency. That's just
it is actually an executive order was signed to make DOGE an official government agency as of less than a week ago. So yeah, okay. It is an official government agency.
Kind of, but not really. It's just an office in the executive. Donald Trump could create any one of these things. It's not like they're granted with any more power than what the executive is already granted with. But I mean, I guess we'll let that one slide. Although we really shouldn't. We should fight on that. But
so obviously we're talking about money. We want people to be able to afford a house. We want them to be able to afford to raise a family, right? As a young man myself, I want to be able to grow up in America and be able to afford food one day, right? I mean, I can't now, but continue that. And at the way things are going, it's unsustainable for people on the left, people on the right, people in the middle. So we have to come to a common ground on how to fix that. What's unsustainable? The fact that cost of living is increasing year after year.
What does DOGE do to inhibit cost of living?
Yeah, absolutely. So what DOGE is going to do, the Department of Government Efficiency, is slash a lot of the federal spending, right? So what happens when
what spending is going to get cut?
So I'm getting there. 1 second, sir. So what's going to happen is the Department of Government Efficiency is going to slash a lot of federal spending. What happens is the government, Republicans, Democrats alike, spend a bunch of money that, excuse my language, but it's nonsense, right? They spend it out here, they spend it out there.
Be more specific. Here or there. Are you talking about cutting defense? Because they're not going to cut defense.
Well, for example, no. Let me finish. Okay. $175 billion to Ukraine. First and foremost,
that's one expenditure over 3 years, and I don't think we've even truly spent that much yet, and a lot of it is obviously it's not cash, it's going to U.S. production of weapons and everything else, but okay, that's a horrible example, but whatever.
It's a bunch of nonsense. So we're going to talk about that, but we also have a bunch of other things in the Defense Department.
Also, how are you going to cut that? That was already spent. That's not even an answer.
As well as a bunch of DEI departments.
Well, they're not touching, first of all, there are no
we have DEI departments? Oh, God, not the Department of DEI.
DEI departments.
Yeah, that's completely false.
Listen, defense spending is not going to be touched by DOGE. When you talk about the government, what's the biggest expenditure government has?
Defense. Our military and Social Security are our top two.
And Medicare and Medicaid, right? Now, they're not going to touch the military. Are they going to cut Social Security? You're asking
me like I'm part of Doge.
No. Well, you're telling me that Doge is going to help everybody here, and I'm telling you, if they cut Social Security, everybody in here is going to get hit. Because these folks are going to have to pay for their parents, because Social Security keeps 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. So tell me what they're going to cut that's going to make it easiasier for Americans.
I already did.
What?
I told you the $175 billion that we've sent to Ukraine. We're no longer going to.
So he's going to.
So Donald Trump has signed an executive order.
No.
Voted out by the majority.
Like you said.
Okay, wait. I mean, hold on, give me a minute.
Okay, so why did we see a higher increase in the top 1% paying as part of federal income revenue under TCJA?
Why did we see a higher increase in the...
So under TCJA, it was passed 2017, it was effective 2018. 2018 and onward, we actually saw the top 1% pay more. They had more of the federal income tax burden. They paid 45% as opposed to Obama. During Obama's tax plan, they only paid about 40 to 42%.
Because they got more money.
Right, okay, so they got more money.
They got richer.
But why are they paying... And why did they get richer?
Okay.
So this goes on inflation.
I want to hear, can you talk me through how does like a higher... I would just like to hear somebody talk through. Okay, let's say the tax rates go up. So how are richer people paying less in tax? Like, are they going to earn less money? Do they just not work for as much money? Or not? Well, like, what's the... I just want to hear the process of that, I guess. I don't know. There are answers that you could give, but it'd be interesting to hear how the conversation goes from there.
And that...
I mean, that's my point, is the rich are getting richer.
Right, but why would you say that they're getting richer? But you mentioned inflation?
Oh. No, they're not. Well, I mean, I think that inflation, to the extent that there was money that wasn't a function of like logistics and other problems that we had during COVID. Yeah, the rich got richer. Not all inflation is a function of monetary inflation.
That's true, but when we look at COVID and we can see that they increased the money supply by 40%, they added $6 trillion, and you have a Federal Reserve System that's doing quantitative easing and pumping stimulus into the economy, you can attribute that to left-wing.
Wait, fuck. One more time. Did we do QE over COVID? I thought QE was just over the 2007 anything. I don't remember if we did QE on COVID or not.
Policy, the
we did, okay.
entire Federal Reserve System is Keynesian economics. Those are very left-wing.
Well, I can tell you this: inflation went up in Western European countries the same rate
that had stimulus.
No, they didn't have the same level of stimulus.
They did.
No,
they absolutely did.
They did.
You can look at Japan. Yeah, I hear this topic all the time from the Democrats. They say, oh, inflation.
I'm pretty sure the United States gave more stimulus than almost every other country in the world. I think Japan was the one that gave more than us, that did more stimulus than the US did.
Inflation was global. Not true. China never went above 3% inflation during all of COVID, and they were actually they were under deflationary pressures. Japan.
My guess is going to be as an exporter nation. I guess that could be true, right? But the deflation was probably really rough for them because they weren't able to sell as much. No, it's a different type of economy. It's a different style of economy. I don't know. Is he saying a deflationary economy would be good or?
Japan, which is part of the G7, was also never had deflationary pressures. They never had inflation increase. The only countries that
I'm
had
talking
inflation
in
increase,
Western Europe. You
Like
could
what
see
country?
inflation. Well, you could England, Germany,
they
Italy.
stimulated.
They didn't stimulate as much as we did. It wasn't monetary
Right.
inflation. If you look at the cost of goods and
why-
logistics got screwed up because of COVID.
So let's look at the reason. All international trade, because we're the world reserve currency, is done in U.S. dollars. Because we experience domestic inflation was high.
So you're saying our inflation
Yes, it
caused
affects
higher
it
inflation in
absolutely-
Europe?
I don't know if all world trade is done in denominated USD. I know for petroleum it is. I don't know if all US, or I don't know if all global trade is, but
Absolutely, because
That's
trade,
not what
it is
economists
international. Well, you can look at the facts. International trade is we have.
but also I don't know how US inflating and deflating would matter either. I'm pretty sure people just do US denominated trade, USD denominated trade, because it's a stable currency to trade through. But I'm not sure if the US is inflating or deflating for our currency. I don't know if that would impact USD denominated trade, because it's just used as the currency of exchange there, not necessarily for it's not like they don't have to like hold it or anything like that.
Dollar denominated
I'm not
international trade.
100% sure.
All international trade is that's why we're the world reserve currency. You guys claim that the U.S. recovered faster than anybody else. It's like, well,
It did.
It's because we have a privilege of being the world reserve currency and we export our inflation. Like the strength.
We export our
yeah,
inflation.
let me explain that. Let me explain that the U.S. dollar is the most safe asset in the world. In times of great crisis and great volatility, like COVID crisis, everybody turns to the dollar.
Sure.
Many currencies are tied to the dollar. So it's like when you
The euro's not tied to the dollar.
The euro is not, but international
Okay.
trade. So if the euro actually crashed against the dollar during COVID. The euro used to be above the dollar.
I'm unclear what your point.
My point
this
is that the inflation is caused by left-wing policies and
So inflation was caused by, you're saying
supply shock and pumping trillions of dollars
Well,
into the economy.
first of all, you understand that the Federal Reserve is not part of Biden. Didn't have control of the Federal
Absolutely
Reserve.
not, but the entire Federal Reserve System is left-wing in economic theory. That's
a claim.
the Keynesian economics. It's interventionist economics. So
So you're saying that the
more you
quantitative
stimulate,
easing,
the more you stimulate. Yeah.
Why didn't we get it through QE?
We do get it through
Why
QE.
didn't we get inflation during the
2008?
Obama
We
years?
did get
when-
inflation.
We didn't get
The wealth gap that you guys
Excuse me,
attributed.
Wait.
We absolutely did.
What numbers of inflation did we get during the Obama years that were outside of like the 2% sort of Fed target?
I don't think it was as high as COVID. COVID hit us
No,
at
it
9%.
wasn't even remotely
Right, but when we
close.
look at the effects of compounding inflation.
QE 1, 2, and 3 all happened during the Obama years. If your theory was correct, we would have had rampant inflation. In fact,
We did.
Glenn Beck was talking about how we were going to turn into
We did not.
Weimar Germany,
But
and
here's
none of
the
that
thing- but here's the
happened.
factors you're
None of
missing.
it.
Here's the
And
factors you're missing.
so if you
We
look
didn't
at
close down
what's
the
happening
economy.
in Western Europe, well, no, listen.
We didn't close down the
closed
Jesus
economy.
Christ.
The
Biden
entire
administration
world.
closed down the economy.
I understand.
No, there was not the entire
Excuse me,
world.
the Biden
Yes,
administration?
they forced mask mandates. They supported Democrats.
Oh no, he's one of those guys that's like, oh yeah, remember lockdowns under Biden? It's like, hold on, buddy. I know that you're part of the Trump camp, but you kind of rewrote history there a little bit. It's like when Dave Smith was like 2024 was the worst year ever for, or no, it was 2020 was the worst year ever for freedom of speech. Like, whoa, hold on, little buddy, hold on, little homie. You know it was Trump's year, right? Trump was president for all of 2020, right? All the lockdowns were under Donald Trump, right?
Wait.
They supported
Wait,
Democrat
do you not
states.
remember who was president in the last?
No one remembers. No, the answer is no, Sam. Nobody seems to remember who that Donald Trump was president during those years. Nobody remembers.
First year of COVID?
What? Yeah, it was Trump. I'm not saying Trump had a role in this, but I'm saying.
Well, wait a second. By the time in 2021, the economy was opening back up.
Yes, the economy.
All of what
No
you're
thanks,
talking about.
no thanks to the Democrats.
Okay, I'm
the
not
Democrats wanted to keep it closed.
Okay, you can talk about hypothetically what the Democrats want, but
It's not hypothetically.
everything-
We can look at
listen,
mask- we can look at their
listen,
mandates, we can look at them closing
The
down.
economy
Do you think mask mandates were destroying the U.S. economy? Or like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Really?
closed down in 2020, March of 2020.
Well, okay, sure.
Donald Trump was president.
Pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Flappa.
How's it going, sir?
Good, how you doing? Sam.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
When you're talking about like inflation, in 2021, Janet Yellen said it would be transitory, and then again in 2022 she said it would be transitory, and it turned out to not be transitory.
Well, I mean, is that true? It kind of was transitory, right? It went away, right? I mean, I guess how long does transitory mean? But
And then one major thing happened in 2022. I think we all know what that was. That was the war in Ukraine. And I believe, and I can explain, that the war in Ukraine was explicitly caused by Joe Biden's bad foreign policy, and that shot
Based.
inflation up from, like there was already pretty bad inflation in early 2022 and late 2021, but it shot it up from the low kind of margins in like 3 or 4%, all the way to 9% in 2022 of July at the peak.
Inflation is now down around 2%, around where
Yeah, it's in between 2.5 and 6,
where they're looking to get it, and we have really close to record unemployment that we've had over the past 4 years. But how does this have to do with Trump's policies not making the richer richer and the rest of us poor?
Okay, so what I was just explaining with, I was going to get into oil prices. So oil prices skyrocketed in 2022 because when in 2021, when Biden got into office, he shut down our Keystone pipeline, shut down all new oil and gas leases in America. Then he took the sanctions off.
We are producing right now more oil in this country than we ever
but he-
have in the history of
but he
any
produced
country
even
ever.
more.
On top of the fact that Biden is credited by oil traders, and this isn't something that I am terribly excited about.
What did he just do
But
on the East
apparently,
Coast?
what Biden did during during the past 4 years is he used the strategic oil reserve.
why is COVID always brushed off as a little bump in the road and not as a worldwide crisis that no one had a sure answer for how to deal with? Because it doesn't play well into conservative conspiracies.
to drive down oil
he
prices
drained
and
our entire
essentially broke and it's filled back
he
up
drained our
and
entire
he
strategic
filled it back
oil
up and he broke
Not even close to the levels of 2020.
he broke the negotiating power and the price setting power by oil countries across the world.
Really?
I mean, oil traders hail him for doing this, and frankly, I don't think it's that impressive. But let's talk about what Trump's policies
Yeah,
are.
we only have a little bit of time left, but I was getting to that. So oil prices, in 2021, Biden took all the sanctions off of the pipeline in Russia, and then the pipeline in Russia ran straight through Ukraine originally, and he knew that if he invaded Ukraine, Ukraine would destroy the pipeline and his economic success would be destroyed in Russia. And then when the sanctions...
Biden or Putin?
Putin knew that would occur in Russia if the sanctions were taken off of that pipeline. And Biden took all the sanctions off of Nord Stream 2 in Russia, like the second week he was in office, and then a year later, Putin invades Ukraine. Sanctions happen all over the world, and inflation rises within 6 months all the way up to 9%. Trump is going to do great things with oil and let us drill, and
Drill,
what that
baby,
actually
drill.
does for the
Like I
economy.
said, we are producing more oil in this country than any country in the history of the world.
What executive order did Biden just sign to have to do with offshore drilling in the East Coast?
He stopped it.
Yeah, really dumb idea. We're about to begin a new...
Wait, so you want to go beyond even the record-breaking thing?
Yes,
are
I
you
want to become
aware
energy
of
independent,
climate?
and that lowers inflation.
We're going to
which
sell
makes
this
the
oil.
economy better.
We don't use the oil. We sell
Yeah, we're
it.
gonna-
We sell
getting
it.
money in the
We
pockets of
sell
American
it.
citizens.
We sell it. Well, how does that oil get into the pocket of American citizens?
Because when you lower the prices of oil, that lowers the prices of
No,
all
I understand.
products.
I understand that the
You
inflationary
transport
process effect of energy. But the fact of the matter is, they're just going to sell it.
Yeah,
You're
we're
not
gonna
going
be-
to sell it.
yeah, so we're
You
gonna be-
want to produce even more oil than we are
Right,
now.
yes.
And you don't think climate change is going to impact... You don't believe in climate change.
Well, that's a whole other discussion, but no.
Well, I mean,
It's natural. The sun causes it. It's already going to happen no matter what we do.
I believe that climate change is...
It's natural.
There's obviously an element of climate change that is partially
Human,
true.
but very small.
Lowering or
Which part
raising,
of it?
raising the man-made raising temperatures
little
by
bit.
1 to 2 degrees Celsius in the next 150 years
There you
isn't
go.
necessarily a detriment to society.
Yeah,
You don't think so?
No, human beings are very good at innovation, and we can build seawalls, and we can create carbon
What kind of
technology.
seawall are you going to build for
seawalls.
Miami?
Hell yeah.
What are you going to do about
There's
when
a
we
bunch of
don't...
research
When we
on
get...
it. I'm talking about the economy right now, which if we get back on topic...
All right, guys. Sorry, time's up. I'll let
Yeah,
you
no
go.
problem.
How's all that green energy investment and the anti-climate change stuff that Trump's investing in, by the way? 10 minutes for a death match,
I choose
one-on-one.
Ben because he let me lecture him about Social Security.
My claim is that abortion is immoral and should not be legal.
Yeah, I disagree because largely because I think the primary rights that we have under a society should belong to the person, and I don't believe a fetus is a person.
Okay, so that's very interesting. You don't believe the fetus is a person. When do you think that it
Oh
gains
god,
personhood
abortion.
in your
Oh god.
Would you agree it's a human life at least?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, yes.
Wait, hold on. Did Sam choose the topic or did the other guy choose the topic? It's gonna be a 10-minute moral philosophy debate on abortion, one of the most obnoxious topics. Good luck.
I think largely, I think that claim is largely, like, it's not relevant to
Yeah,
the
I
way
got
that I
you.
think
Okay.
about it. I think about it in terms of personhood. I mean, I think, like, life exists all around us. And
Not human, like human life, but not like, there's not human life in a tree.
Right, correct.
So it's human life.
It's human life.
But it's not a person?
It's not a person.
At which point does it gain personhood
I think-
and gain the value of being a human?
Well, I think it becomes a person when it's born.
Why? So 5 seconds prior, it's not born yet, not person. 5 seconds after.
Wait, I'm sorry. Sam didn't go with the when it's born argument, right? God, this is gonna be so cringe.
Person?
It's not a person.
At which point does it gain personhood
I think-
and gain the value of being a human?
Well, I think it becomes a person when it's born.
Why? So 5 seconds prior, it's not born yet, not person. 5 seconds after exits the birth canal, person. Is there a magical quality to the birth canal? What is that?
The person becomes separate from the host that has been that it's been growing inside.
Okay, so would you assign that to other human beings that are attached to things? Like, for instance, if I'm attached to a machine,
Dialysis
am I a machine now?
machine,
Am I part of that machine, or am I still a human life? I just need support in order to stay alive.
If you've never been born and you're growing in, let's say, a test tube, for instance, then yes, I would argue you're not a person yet.
Okay, so it's not really the disconnected part. It's the
No.
being born part.
Well, being born means being disconnected from your mother.
Okay, so you're specifically aligning having the quality of being birthed as what makes someone a person.
Person within the context of our society and civilization.
So just in our society, you wouldn't say that objectively that's a person. You would say that we just decide that it's a person because it's birth.
Yeah, rights we give to persons. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's an interesting kind of definition of what human life and specifically personhood
Well, no,
is.
I'm conceding that it's human life, but that you're not a person until you're born, and you do not have the same rights that we would give. Look, we have rights about cruelty to animals, for instance, right? But they're not persons within the context
Well, yeah,
of our
I'm not saying that
society.
they are, but specifically, it seems like you're just kind of saying, oh, it's a person when it's born, but you're not actually providing any consistent reason for that. You're just saying it just is a person.
I'm saying that on some level, there's a certain amount of arbitrariness as to when we give rights. Like one could say, do you say it's at conception?
Sure, yeah.
So IVF.
Sam's been debating for years how he's gonna run into these arguments before he's actually he just doesn't do philosophy or moral shit, which is fine. It's cringe. Who cares? But
In other words, would have to be illegal under your principle because.
I mean, I'm not sure that I would agree with IVF in that case. It really depends on the particulars in that case, but I believe.
Well, what do you mean the particulars?
Well, so for instance, at conception, you would still be a human life, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the fertilized egg attaches last
So
feet or wall.
is it human life for you or what?
It's human life, yeah.
Okay, so human life should be protected.
Yes.
Okay, so IVF.
Yeah, I would say that
So IVF should be illegal under your rubric.
no. So they're human lives, correct?
The IVF is when the egg and the sperm and then they're supplanted.
Yes.
Is it when is it human life?
As soon as it has unique human DNA, that's a human life.
Okay, so
it's a new human, correct?
Now in the IVF process, there's stuff that gets thrown out. Like,
Yes.
You would consider that.
Yeah,
Like, I'm surprised that he doesn't have, or I guess he just doesn't debate abortion as a topic, because, like, this is the easiest thing in the world. The other guy's just going to say, oh, yeah, that's immoral. Like, this other guy's just going to say, oh, yeah, I would say that's immoral. They shouldn't do that.
Now in the IVF process, there's stuff that gets thrown out. Like,
Yes.
You would consider that.
Yeah,
murder.
I'm not even defending IVF or going against it. I'm specifically saying abortion. That was my claim, right? I'm not going to argue IVF.
But
I'm
isn't
saying-
that abortion under your
I
principle?
would say if you get rid of human life after conception, I don't think that's moral. I'm not going to argue the IVF particulars because that's not what my claim was, right?
When we're talking about laws, right? Because you want to outlaw abortion.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. When we're talking about laws, it's not just morality when we form public policy around and create laws.
Not just.
But, I mean, laws are downstream from morality, of course. Probably all criminal law, arguably, is downstream from morality, right? Hey, this is a small content creator. Got the first DMCA claim today. I published a video demonstrating how Jagex limited its upcoming survival game as copying Valheim 1-to-1. How do you get DMCA for that? What?
Yes, but it should be moral, correct?
Well, I mean, I think like your
should have
definition of
been
what constitutes moral and mine are different. For instance, I would prefer, in a perfect world, not to have abortion on demand until, up until birth, right?
Sure.
In a perfect world. However, we know in practice that when you start to restrict things, like say, only in the threat of life to the woman, let's say, that's the only way we're going to allow abortions, right? When you start to have these exceptions, they're in practice, they don't work. Because when your life is in jeopardy and you come into a hospital, the doctor doesn't see a bulb that shows up above you and say, like, your life is in jeopardy. It's always a subjective assessment. And what does life in jeopardy, hold on, what does life in jeopardy mean? Does it mean a 30% chance of death? Does it mean a 50%, a 70%, or a 20%? That's why we now have women who are dying. Because doctors are afraid to perform abortions on them. That's true.
Are you
know it's the
referencing,
case.
just because
multiple
some
instances of this.
doctors misread plain text doesn't mean that, that it's
when you
all of a sudden
pass
that life
laws,
is less valuable or more valuable.
No, it means that you are subjecting the woman to more risk, and it's impossible. These exceptions are all, they're canards.
No,
When you oppose a law, it is not just about morality, it's in practice.
Sure,
in practice,
I understand that.
You cannot do this without sacrificing women's lives because
What about
of
the
your
unborn
morality.
children, though? Because let's go back to your born
Unborn
thing.
children.
Sorry, I included 26 seconds of footage that was leaked to me of the unpublished game in the video. It was a small part of the video. I believe I'm covered by fair use. Would you be interested in covering this? I don't cover fair use shit. I don't care. If you think it's fair use, though, then counterclaim, and then see if they sue you, and then go from there. But I mean, all you do is counterclaim. If you think it's fair use, they probably won't sue you, but they might. It's not legal advice. Good luck.
Let's say
Now,
you
not
have
persons,
a 9-month...
and the mother has more rights, in my mind, than the unborn child.
Yeah, that's a claim that you can
fetus.
make. But so a 9-month birthed child, or just 9 months and just now born, it's a newborn baby. A 5-month could be emergency C-section and could be birthed, right? Let's say they don't do that. What's the difference between the arbitrary choice of taking that child out of the womb at 6
Why
months or
don't
5
we
months?
take all children out at 5
what I'm
months?
saying is that the personhood just because of birth runs into a problem where it starts to say,
All right, guys.
well,
I hate to do it, but I gotta do it. I'm sorry, that's time.
I'm glad I was here. It was interesting. I know my questions were more sort of policy oriented, I think, than maybe folks anticipated here, and I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't many people here who could address the policies. They were very, very sure of themselves as to why they voted for Trump, but a lot of it was sort of not material in any way.
So there was stuff that conservatives were saying today that I fundamentally disagreed with my entire heart, but at the end of the day, we're still part of the conservative movement. So I think there are people that I disagreed with, there are people that I completely did agree with, but the cool thing about this new conservative movement and the people here today is it's people from all different walks of life sharing their perspective.
Cool.
I don't think Sam had at least when I was speaking to him, I don't think Sam really had great responses because the reality is not on his side. I don't think socialism works. I think social programs can be good up to a certain extent, but we are very socialist as a nation. And
so socialist.
Yeah, I mean, let's say it again. Socialism does not work.
Epic.
Sorry. Wish it did.
I think debate is healthy, and I think it helps viewers sort of clarify
Absolutely friggin'
why
epic,
certain people
man.
support certain things, and it gives an opportunity, I think, to both have fun and drama and maybe learn some stuff. So that's always a good thing.
Wow. That was, God, him having that sign was just freaking epic.